Welcome, everyone, to the Fandom Podcast Network special presentation of Time Warp 1984, 40th anniversary movies and pop culture. And we are discussing the month of June of 1984. We're getting into the heavy summer movie season for 84. This is exciting. I'm Kevin. I'm your host, and I'd like to introduce my co-host for this Time Warp. With me, as always, is my brother from another mother, Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's going on, brother? Good to see you.
It is good to be here. I am excited. And here's how excited I am, Kevin. I'm on a search for Spock that took me a left turn on Beach Street, but the Gremlins messed things up. Well, one good karate kick led me to the top secret bachelor party.
That's good. I like that one, Kyle. All right, Lacee's going to join us here in a little bit. She's, of course, our co-host here, and we'll get her in here in a moment here. But first of all, yes, Kyle, as you always do, I love how you put your little spin on things in the intro here. This is a big month for movies. This is Time Warp, the Fandom flashback show, of course, on the Fandom Podcast Network. And we, of course, are celebrating the movies of 1984, Kyle. Does it feel like 40 years ago?
If you would have asked me this morning after I was moving furniture all day yesterday, it definitely feels like 40 years ago.
I know, right? We're all feeling it in like our arms and our bones and our, stuff like that. So yeah.
But it's actually a good question because there's some of these movies that honestly they don't feel like they're 40 years old. Other ones, oh yeah, you're definitely feeling the time frame on them.
All right, so as I said, this is 84, and we're getting into the summer season here. And this is exciting because this is when the blockbusters are starting. By the way, Kyle, I was reminded, and I think I remember. Do you remember why they called them blockbusters?
Oh, I know this, but I'm
the reason why they call them blockbusters is because people used to wait out in line and go around the block.
Yep.
Thus, they were called blockbusters. And the movie that really kind of started that was Jaws, or that terminology came around. Then, of course, was cemented when Star Wars came out. But that's why they are called summer blockbusters, because people waited around the line back in the days, Kyle. There's a part of me that misses those days.
Okay, so let me ask you this while we're waiting for Lacey, just real quick. What was your biggest blockbuster line?
I want to say maybe the 89 Batman. That's really when things started to ramp up around. And I remember too, Independence Day was just huge. We didn't have the long lines that I remember those late 80s ones in the early 80s. Like in other places did in other cities. Kyle, what about you?
So it goes up in two aspects for me. Probably like the longest wait in a line for a movie was actually probably Jurassic Park.
Right.
However, the longest line to get tickets for a movie was when the pre-sale tickets went on sale for the Phantom Menace.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that one well.
a day where I just told work I needed a day off. I didn't know you didn't tell them why, and then the next day there I am on the front page of the newspaper because they took a picture of me and interviewed me and I'm like, well, now work knows what I was doing on my day off.
Yeah. Well, hey, it looks like we got Lacee back. Let's see. Lacee, are you with us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome to Time Warp 1984 June.
All of a sudden you started and I was like, oh, lost audio.
Kyle brought up a good question we wanted you to jump in on. I was reminding him the term blockbuster came from the 70s when lines went around the block, thus busted the blocks. And it was Jaws and Star Wars that kind of started that terminology. He asked me, and I want to ask you, Kyle, you asked the question. Ask Lacee the same question.
So Lacee, what is the longest what movie was the longest line you ever waited in for a movie?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I would have to say it's a tie between Lord of the Rings, the first one, the Fellowship, and I took a friend of mine's daughter to go see the first Twilight movie. And
Hey, you guys are really making me feel old here because Kyle said Phantom Menace, and I threw out Batman '89 and Independence Day. Come on, guys!
Actually, Phantom Menace. I was in LA when Phantom Menace came out, and that's in Westwood Village where they don't have a multiplex. It's just like different theaters on each corner, like with one house, and that was huge. The line actually went all the way down to the park.
That's why they're called blockbusters, is those lines, and unfortunately we really don't get that anymore with all the digital stuff, digital buying and online and stuff like that. So we miss those days, but we did want to let people know that we've done some time warping recently. And I did want to say, and I've been given an update. Last year, we did a great time warp for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV series retrospective. I've finally finished my rewatch of Buffy the Vampire Slayer all the way through. And Lacey, I had a question for you because I have not done my rewatch of Angel. I've only went in and did it. I did a couple of ones early, but spoiler alert: it seems that Spike dies at the end of the season 7. Does he come back and do some stuff later in Angel? Because I remember the puppet episode and some other stuff, but I can't remember how he comes back.
You know the amulet?
Yes.
That ish is magic, yo.
Oh, okay, all right. That's all I need to know. All right. But anyway, thoroughly enjoyed it. Season 7 wasn't as bad as I remember. There were some good moments, but it was really fun to go back and rewatch that entire series. Make sure you check that out.
Quick question, Kevin.
Yes.
Is Nathan Fillion the most evil character that's ever been on Buffy?
I would have given him his own show. He was so freaking good. I just absolutely love Nathan Fillion.
Caleb's character? I mean...
Yeah. Caleb was a great villain. I would have loved to have seen him longer. We only got like maybe 3 or 4 episodes out of him. He was fantastic. So, also, of course, go back and check us out if you're listening and watching us on YouTube. And by the way, if you are listening to us, make sure you watch the YouTube thing because we got a lot of great pictures that are going to be showing for the slideshow for these podcasts. And of course, we did part 1 with January, movies like, of course, Hot Dog the movie and Angel, and then part 2 we had Footloose and Blame It on Rio and Lassiter, and then we get into March and April. We did Spinal Tap, Romancing the Stone, Splash, Ice Pirates, Police Academy, Friday the 13th, Up the Creek, Suburbia, Moscow and Hudson. And then we, of course, last month we did May, where we covered Indiana Jones 2 and the Temple of Doom, Firestarter, 16 Candles, Hard Bodies, Break-In, and Robert Redford's The Natural, plus many, many more. This month, of course, we've got some really good ones that we're going to get into. We're really excited about that. But let's do what we usually like to do, guys, here. Let's take a step back into 1984. Let's fuel up that DeLorean with that flux capacitor. Slingshot around the sun in that captured Klingon bird of prey. Take a step into that blue police box or phone booth, or you can step into that quantum leap accelerator. Or my favorite, let's take a dip in that hot tub time machine as we travel back to 1984. We're going to remind you of what was happening in pop culture, sports, politics, television, and of course the movies of 84. Let's go ahead and head back into 1984. All right, guys, we got some world news here. Kyle, yes.
I do have a time machine update that I need to drop here real quick.
Okay, give it to us. What you got?
Our favorite police box, because now that Disney Plus is the worldwide distributor of Doctor Who.
Yes.
Our favorite police box TARDIS can now be found officially on Disney grounds. They have TARDIS
really? Like, you mean Disney? When you say Disney ground, you mean like Disney World and Disneyland, right?
Yes.
Cool.
Wow. That's a great photo opportunity. I wonder where is it, like showing up in like Galaxy's Edge, Star Wars Land, or like where is it?
I'm not quite sure where they have it, but I have seen it. I have officially seen people with pictures of the
That's great.
Disney property.
There is one at an auto parts store in Huntsville, Alabama, where if you open the door to it, that's where the bathroom is.
I tell you, I really, really geeked out when I went to London last year in Scotland with Aaron, and we actually found some police boxes, real ones. It was great. I geeked out on them.
Very cool.
All right, guys, let's get into some world news of 1984. And the first thing that we have to mention here, though, is June 6th, USSR computer programmer releases his new game, Tetris, which can only be available for the Electronica 60 console. June 18, Alan Berg. Oh, I'm sorry, that's different. That's something else. I know there was a movie that came out about this. I didn't see it about Tetris. Kyle, did you see this movie?
I have not watched it yet, but it is called Tetris. It was an Apple TV direct movie starring Taron Egerton of Kingsman fame.
That's right. Yes. Okay. But anyway, yeah, check out these early consoles. If you're watching the video, it's like old school here, guys.
Well, come on. Tetris changed the handheld game forever when it became the first game to come with the Game Boy.
I still have Tetris nightmares. I still do.
Well,
I really.
This was the big thing about Tetris was that it was originally slated as to encourage hand-eye coordination in Russian fighter pilots.
Mm-hmm.
And give them nightmares too. Where's the long bar? I just need the long bar right now. I've got it set up. Come on.
And of course, now you get one of those crazy little like dink 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 pieces that doesn't fit anywhere.
Yeah, that was lame.
Nice.
Some shocking news here, guys. And I remember this. We had June 18th, Alan Berg, a radio host in Colorado, is shot outside his home. The Jewish lawyer and radio personality is assassinated by members of the Order, a white supremacist group. Stephen Dietz' 1988 Play God's Country and 1988 film Betrayed were based on this incident, and was the film Brotherhood of Murder in 1999, and director Oliver Stone's 1988 film adaptation with Eric Bogosian play Talk Radio also drew inspiration from Berg's death. His life and death were chronicled in this book, Talk to Death: The Life and Murder of Alan Berg by Stephen Singular. By Stephen Singular. I remember this happening. I didn't really know who he was. And I Googled the death scenes there. It was brutal. It was a straight up assassination with like machine guns. It was just, it was nasty. But I do remember watching the Eric Bogosian Talk Radio one, because this is when talk radio hosts are really becoming a thing, a big, huge personality. Of course, Stern was on the rise. You had Imus, you had all these guys really making huge personality things and also rubbing people the wrong way. And unfortunately, this is what happened here. So big news. I remember this well. All right. Next, we have born in 1984. In June of 1984, we got some famous people here. We have Jillian Murray, actress, Tim Lincecum, baseball player, Paul Dano, actor and producer, Matt Lauria, actor, Aubrey Plaza, one of my crushes, actress and comedian, Khloe Kardashian, television personality, Fantasia, R&B singer from American Idol, and Sean Merriman, football player. Are we surprised by any of these? These are like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't realize they were 40 years old.
Sean Merriman played for the Chargers. Does anybody actually remember anybody who played for the Chargers?
No, not really.
I didn't even know he was a football player. That just reminded me of Ryan Merriman, who played a football player in one of his Hallmark movies.
There you go. We did have some famous people, unfortunately, pass away in 84, deaths in 84. We had Ned Glass, American actor. Here, let me put this on the screen as well. We had Meredith Wilson, American composer. Lee Krasner, American painter. Estelle Winwood, English actress. Joseph Losey, American film director. William Cleary, American film director. Carl Foreman, American screenwriter. And we also had Henry Fabre, French aviator and inventor, and Lillian Hellman, American playwright. All right. We have some 84 tech here, guys, and we've got two we all want to shout out here. The first one, which I always thought was really cool, and boy, these were thick back in the day, the Discman, the Sony Discman. This was Sony's brand name for portable CD players. The first Discman, the Sony D50 or D5, depending on region, was launched in 1984. The brand name was changed to CD Walkman, initially for Japanese lineups launched between October 1997 and March of 1998, and then entirely in 2000. Discman and CD Walkman players are no longer produced. Prior to the development of the compact disc, cassette tapes were the dominant form of audio storage in then fledgling portable audio industry. 1979, Sony produced the Walkman in Japan. When Sony realized the potential of the CD, the Walkman was promoted to mainstream buyers. As much as it was claimed that they had the anti-skip versions later on. Was it really? Yeah.
Only if you weren't jogging. Like the commercial always had like this guy jogging, and I was like, they are out of the dang mind. No way.
It was a great way to also, like, if you didn't have your CD player in your car, but you had that like cassette tape adapter, you could set it up and have a CD playing and stuff like that. Kyle, do you remember getting your first Discman or Sony, or like, you know?
Yeah, if you threw it at people, you could knock them cold, and there was no way Star-Lord was ever walking around with a Discman attached in the middle of battle like he did with his Walkman.
Right.
That's funny. The other option, the other electronic device we have this here pictured on the right here, that is the Electronica VM12. And I say it like that because this was the Soviet this was the first Soviet VHS compatible video cassette recorder. It was capable to record CCAM, Techno Talk, PAL, this is PAL version, and black and white video on a 12.65 millimeter wide magnetic tape. This weighed 10 kilograms. I'm going to assume, I don't know math that well, that was probably like 700 pounds. No, it looks very, very heavy if you look at the picture. Kyle, this was early VHS stuff, and it was PAL. This is a big deal. I didn't know Russian on early.
Well, that and just PAL format in general, because there was a lot of things internationally that used PAL format, especially things from England and things like that, that was so frustrating because you'd want to watch. They would never come over to the US. And
yeah, we couldn't watch them. Yeah, you had to somehow find a way to not get PAL. It always sucked. Yeah, definitely.
And of course, now our video game systems are 0 region coded, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and so is 4K. Woo. All right, we got some products that were released in 1984. I always like to share a couple of these guys. And the two is, and I vaguely remember this, was Extravision. Extravision was something that you would have on your television. It was a short-lived teletext service created and operated by the American Television Network, CBS, in the early to mid-'80s. It was carried in the vertical blanking interval of the video from local affiliate stations of the CBS network. It featured CBS program information, news, sports, weather, even subtitling for CBS programs. Does anyone remember this at all?
No.
Yeah.
Vaguely.
CBS had begun test in 1979 at their St. Louis station. And it says, one issue is that due to CBS heavy emphasis on the Extravision service, it did not offer line 21 closed captioning for the hearing impaired. Unlike ABC, NBC, or PBS, ABC never offered teletext services, but only certain PBS stations, including the aforementioned KCET and WGBH, experimented teletext. I thought that was kind of interesting.
It says you have to ask us if we want to play a game.
It does. The result was nationwide protests against CBS by the National Association of the Deaf, with people picketing the studios of CBS and affiliated station. One child protested in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with a sign reading, "Please caption for my mom and dad." Aww. Mm-hmm. Now, the other item I know we all remember, and that was Slice. More than a new category, a new category. Slice was a line of fruit-flavored soft drinks originally manufactured by PepsiCo and introduced in 1984 to replace the Team brand. That's TEM. But discontinued by PepsiCo in North America in the late 2000s. Slice was reintroduced in the United States and Canada as a brand of organic food by New Slice Ventures, which acquired the trademark rights to those countries. Slice was also reintroduced by India by PepsiCo in 2008. So I remember when this came out, this was a big deal, and it was usually the lemon lime flavor that was the most popular. Kyle, do you remember ever tasting the cherry cola slice? I don't remember that. You
I don't remember
that, Lacee?
Yeah, I remember there was an apple one and a cherry one. I didn't like the orange, and I never liked Sprite, so I don't think I even probably bothered with Slice.
Oh, I was all over the orange. Kyle, what about you?
I'm with you on the orange. Apple Slice was some of the nastiest stuff you will ever drink.
I like the apple slice.
There was a strawberry flavored pineapple fruit punch and grape. Slice advertising in the early 1990s featured Fido Dido, a character associated with U.S. competitor 7-Up in international markets where PepsiCo has the rights to the latter brand. Lemon Lime Slice used the slogan, clearly the clearly the one during this era. I think they were fighting against 7-Up, maybe.
So here's the crazy thing. So you have Slice, but Sprite is actually a Coke product now, and Pepsi now. First it was Sierra Mist, and now it's Starry.
Well, that's because of the controversy with an adult actress.
Okay.
Yeah, Pepsi sent like a cease and desist or something because she was using the name Sierra Mist or something close to it. And so cease and desist because of the copyright. And then her lawyer looked at the copyright, found out that it was expired. So they copyrighted it and then told Pepsi they could suck it.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
Well played there, Lacee. By the way, what's wrong with Crystal Pepsi? Let's bring that back. Was there something wrong with it? I don't know. I'm just saying, bring it back.
Yeah.
All right, next we've got some totally tubular 80s toys, guys. This is a favorite subject of mine here, and we got 3 for shout outs here. We have the Ewoks rocking chair for $24.99. This is when they were just slapping anything Star Wars on anything. We also have the superheroes and supervillain figures on wheel set, $7.99 each. And then we had the Garfield lunch kit priced at $6.99. I remember the superhero villain figures. I never got them. Kyle, did you have any of those?
I didn't have any of them, but I remember them. But come on. I look at that lunchbox, and I mean, whether it was Garfield or anything, so many, we all had to have a cool lunchbox when we all went to school.
Mine was Dukes of Hazzard. I had my Dukes of Hazzard lunchbox for like 6 years.
Nice. Rocking the Dukes. It was, I remember the thermoses were like the deal, and they were also pretty thick. And it was like, if you could still find those are the original thermoses, that's the trick. That's a trick. All right, let's get into some music here, guys. All right, 1984 music news. Some big stuff here. June 4th, of course, we are celebrating the month of June here in 84. Born in the USA, Springsteen's 7th album is released in America. Trying to remember if that was popular or not. Get to that later, maybe. June 8th, Billy Joel performs at Wembley Arena. The concert is later broadcast on BBC television in 2 parts. June 16th, Frankie Goes to Hollywood begins a 9-week stay at the top of the UK single charts with 2 Tribes, very popular in the States as well. And June 18th, at the climax of the Judas Priest concert in Madison Square Gardens, fans begin ripping out the cushions from the seats and throwing them on stage. Judas Priest pays damages through insurance and are banned from the Madison Square Garden for life for the incident. I wonder if that's still in place. Just curious about that. June 23rd, Duran Duran earned their first U.S. #1 single with The Reflex, making it their first single to top both the UK and US charts. And if you guys have been paying attention through this 1984 Time Warp series we've been doing this year, especially you've been doing it monthly, this is when Duran Duran was just breaking out and their concerts were selling out. They were huge. June 25th, Prince releases his 6th album, Purple Rain. The album sells over 20 million copies and gives Prince 2 U.S. #1 singles with When Doves Cry and Let's Go Crazy. And the last bit of notable news for music in June is June 30th, Elton John's Night and Day concert at Wembley Stadium is broadcast live in its entirety across BBC Radio. I thought that was kind of a cool thing. I don't remember a lot of live concerts being broadcast over the radio. Does this ring a bell with any of you guys? No?
No, I mean, especially since it was BBC Radio and it was 1980s, we wouldn't have had that anyway.
Well, I know. I was just wondering if US did that a lot. I thought that would be kind of a cool thing to happen. So I was kind of curious about that. Well, one of the things we like to do with music is tease a little bit of the top 1984 Billboard Hot 100. And of course, back in the 80s, what was your favorite song? Well, we got a little picture here showing some of the big ones there. But let's talk about the group that we have this month. And we've got number 56 down to 49, starting with 56, Islands in the Stream by Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. 55 was I Want a New Drug, Huey Lewis and the News. 54, Sad Songs, Say So Much by Elton John. 53, Running with the Night by Lionel Richie. 52, That's All by Genesis. 51, Caribbean Queen by Billy Ocean. Number 50, To All the Girls I've Loved Before, Julio Iglesias and Willie Nelson. And at 49, Let the Music Play by Shannon. Kyle, you got any favorites in this?
Running with the Night by Lionel Richie. Billy Ocean was Caribbean Queen. And let's not ask Ray Parker Jr. about I Want a New Drug. Can we just not do that to the poor guy?
I don't get it.
Ray Parker Jr. Oh, Ray Parker Jr. was sued by Huey Lewis in the News because that was the first real big case of sampling in a song, and he sampled the hell out of I Want a New Drug for the Ghostbusters.
Oh, okay. I remember. Okay, gotcha. Lacey, you have any favorites out of this group?
Islands in the Stream. Hello.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I mean, Let the Music. I don't know who Shannon is, but I do remember Let the Music Play.
Yeah, you know you know the song, but you don't really know the artist. That's one of those.
Right. And well, the thing is, I'm really bad with music anyway, so I know some of these names, but I'm really bad with remembering songs. It's just not in my right. So, the fact that I know that song and don't know the person is like, that must have been like an earwig that just still hasn't gone away.
Islands in the Stream is like one of the most popular karaoke songs at anywhere ever. You know, if you want to do the duet thing. My two favorites out of this are Caribbean Queen. I'm a huge Billy Ocean fan. I loved everything Billy Ocean. I would go see Billy Ocean in concert if he came around here. And of course, Huey Lewis was just killing it with I Want a New Drug. I think that was a great song to come out at the time. So let's get into some television, guys. All right, 1984 in television, guys, and debuting this year. I didn't know exactly where to put this, guys, but I had to put it somewhere. It came across recently because Alien 1979 did not come out in 1984, but it is currently celebrating its 45th anniversary. It's being played on the big screen because of that reason. But 5 years later, Alien, the original Alien, would premiere on the ABC Sunday night movie in 1984. And if you're watching this video, there's a very funny picture I found. This is inside of a TV Guide ad here. That back in the day, a lot of artists were hired to do representation of the TV or the movie instead of just using whatever the movie poster was or something like that. And this is what we got out of this. And I can't really explain it to you well enough, but it is very 80s. It is very cheesy. Yes, Lacey.
I will say that in this photo, it looks like Sigourney Weaver's role is being played by Madeline Kahn. And it looks like just to her left is John Ritter with a full beard.
I was going to say Chris Christopherson personally, but
I was going to go with Chris Christopherson.
Yeah,
it's funny you say that because
it looks like Sulu's sit in the background of that too.
Yeah.
If you're listening to the audio podcast, the people that are being shown in this picture are Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, John Hurt, and Yaphet Kotto. And also, it looks like the gun that Ripley has looks like something out of like Buck Rogers or something. It is just, It is really, really funny. It's like a wall-eyed television view, but it is on television. And I love how it says, first time on network TV, parental discretion is advised. And a friend of mine shared this. I think my friend Joe Cornery, I want to give him a shout out. He shared it, then I reshared it with some more information on it. Joe's a great Star Wars artist, by the way, wonderful art. And I couldn't find the exact date when this premiered, but because Alien came out in May of 1979, I thought I'd share it here. It reminded me of this might have been when I actually saw Alien for the first time because it was heavily edited and probably went for 2.5 hours, because of all the commercials and the extra editing. Kyle, do you remember seeing Alien on network television, or Lacey?
I don't remember seeing it on network television. At HBO, yes. Network television, never until much later and later on when cable was a lot more prevalent. But no, I think the first time I saw Alien was on like HBO.
Yeah, I see. I didn't have HBO. I think I remember seeing part of this because this was at Sunday night at 9:00. I wasn't staying up. My parents weren't letting me staying up at 84 because of school the next day. So I probably either saw part of this or someone recorded it, or I saw the original Alien on video cassette later on. Lacey, do you remember hearing about this? I know you're not a big horror fan, but do you remember hearing about this at all?
I didn't see Alien until long after I'd seen Aliens. And I thought that it was going to be like super fun and like actiony like Aliens, and it was
not so much.
slow burn. So I don't think I know.
Okay. Well, I thought this was a really cool kind of picture of pop culture, seeing this from a TV guide ad. And I love those old black and white ads out of newspapers and TVs. And I try to share them when I can here. But I do want to give a shout out to my lovely wife when I was in Australia, where she's from there in Melbourne. We went to go see an Alien and Aliens double feature on our anniversary on Alien Day, which was great. And it was great. I had never seen Alien on the big screen before. Aliens I have, but it was great. It was fantastic. So
nice.
Also debuting was Danger Mouse, 1984. Kyle, you got something you want to say?
You have to have been living in the time when Danger Mouse came out, because
hold on, Kyle. I got some background here. Do you mind if I read this first?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Your thoughts here. So Danger Mouse is a British animated television series that aired on the U.S. Nickelodeon from 84 to 87, 91 to 94. It was the very first all-cartoon show ever aired on Nickelodeon. It was also one of the last shows aired during the Silver Ball era. Danger Mouse is the greatest secret agent in the world and must follow Colonel K's orders and try not to break Professor Squawk-and-Cluck's inventions to foil Baron Greenback's and his henchman Stiletto's plans. Kyle, I'm going to let you have the floor here because I've actually never seen an episode of Danger Mouse. I didn't have Nickelodeon growing up when I was a kid.
So the big deal about this was Nickelodeon at the time was probably its most famous show was You Can't Do That on Television. Nickelodeon had not even forayed into animated stuff. When they got the rights to do Danger Mouse, which is basically just think of it as an animated Britain's version of an animated James Bond for kids, they went all out in the marketing. I felt like for a year I saw nothing but ads for Danger Mouse. When it finally came out, it is so British. It is so British.
I remember seeing reruns on You Can't Do That on Television later on when I did eventually get Nickelodeon, but I never watched Danger Mouse. I just, for whatever it was, I don't know why. Lacee, do you have any?
Car he had was pretty cool, and I want to say his little sidekick's name was Spudsworth, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Lacey, do you remember Danger Mouse?
I do. I remember it being one of my, because I was just a hair too old for Nickelodeon. My sister was 5 years younger, and so she was watching all of the Nickelodeon stuff. So I remember that being on TV. I don't know that I ever sat down and like watched an episode at the time, but I've seen it since, and it's got some really fun little. It's one of those ones where a kid can watch it, and every once in a while, if an adult's in the room, they'll catch something that kids don't catch, which is nice.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Truthfully, his little sidekick, his name was Penfold.
Penfold, gotcha.
We also the smartest one of the bunch.
Smart. Was that like Penny from Inspector Gadget, the smartest one of the bunch?
No, I mean Danger Mouse was still pretty, but Penfold usually ended up being the one to figure out things at the end.
Gotcha. Well, we did have some shows ending this year, and one of them that we had, of course, was Tattletales. Started in 1974, ended June 1st. Tattletales is an American game show produced by Goodson Todman Productions in associate with Fermental, if I'm reading that right. Host is Bert Convey. Remember him well. The program had 2 runs on CBS daytime schedule between February of 1974 and June of 1984. It was hosted by Bert Convey with several announcers, including Jack Clark, Gene Wood, Johnny Olson, and John Harlan. Providing the voiceovers at various times. Wood was the primary announcer during the show's first run, and Olson was announced during the 80s. The show's premises involved questions asked about celebrity couples, personal lives, and was based on He Said, She Said, a syndicated show hosted by Joe should know this guy's name. Garagiola. I think he was a former baseball player that aired during 1969 and 70 season, which itself was based on an unsold 66 pilot called It Had to Be You and was hosted by Ed McMahon, which featured 4 civilian couples instead of celebrity couples. I vaguely remember this. Does anyone else remember Tattletales? No?
I feel like it looks enough like the dating game or love match that I probably wouldn't have noticed at that age.
Yeah.
It might have been on. Maybe my mom watched it in the afternoon or something, like while she was doing stuff.
Yeah, it was this is where you would get celebrities that were trying to find work. You get them on there. It was a big turnstile of celebrities with tic-tac-toe and all that kind of stuff. So next we had Ending, and I remember this show. I would love to go back and rewatch it, and that is The Whiz Kids. Didn't last long at all. The Whiz Kids is an American science fiction adventure series that originally aired on CBS from October 5th, 83 to June 2nd, 84. Show was created by Philip Daguerre. And the series starred Matthew Lebator, Todd Porter, Jeffrey Jackett, and Andre Elson as the Whiz Kids, a group of teenagers who became amateur detectives using computer technology to solve mysteries. The show also starred Max Gale as an investigative reporter and A. Martinez as the commanding officer of the local police precinct detective squad. Now, I just want to mention real quick, if this show took off, I don't know if we would have A. Martinez in his awesome run for the Santa Barbara soap opera series, which we will touch on another episode of Time Warp. Kyle, Whiz Kids.
I absolutely loved Whiz Kids when I was younger, when that came out. Yeah, I remember being very frustrating because it was constantly getting moved on the schedule. The other problem it had was there was a show on the Disney Channel that came out about the same time as this that really gave it a lot of competition. And I think more kids actually watched it because it was on the Disney Channel. And that was the show The Edison Twins. And so there were 2 very similar concepts, but I loved them both. And I wish Whiz Kids would have taken off.
The series experienced a notable backlash from critics for its portrayal of teenage computer hackers. The program garnered 4 Youth and Film Award nominations for its young stars, as well as a 5th nomination for Best New Series of 83, and was canceled after 1 season with 18 episodes produced. Lacey, do you remember this show?
I do not. I do remember the Edison Twins, and I just looked at that guy and I was like, I know who that is. I know who that is. Why do I know who that is? And he's the kid from Little House on the Prairie, and I don't know why I wouldn't have seen this show because we watched Little House on the Prairie all the time.
Right. Yeah.
So, crazy.
Right, the next show I don't remember, but I remember in Southern California, we were getting the lottery. Lotteries are popping up now. This is becoming a thing, right? And there was a TV series called Lottery. Millions of 3-year-olds holding the winning lottery ticket. It's everybody's fantasy. Get lucky. Live it tonight. New series. Can money buy respectability? Rush and flattery give a lady a chance to change her life. Lottery is a drama that premiered on ABC on September 9th, 83. And the series aired only for 17 episodes and starred Ben Murphy as Patrick Sean Flattery, not Sean Patrick Flattery, as Marshall Colt as and Marshall Colt as Eric Rush. Lottery centered on an ordinary people who have won the lottery, all of a sudden become millionaires, and how it changes their lives. Each week, several guest stars become instant millionaires in 2 or 3 different stories when their lottery tickets bring them fame, fortune, and usually trouble. Flattery worked for the, quote, InterSweep Lottery. His job was to find winners, inform them of their winnings, and give him or her an envelope containing $5,000 in cash and a check worth millions, an event of ownership disputes with the winning ticket. So it's interesting. It says that Rush was Flattery's partner, an IRS agent who oversaw the accounting of the payouts. I don't remember the show at all, but to me, it seems kind of an important show that people should watch who become millionaires and don't know how to handle their money. Kyle, do you remember this movie or this TV series?
I do not remember the show, but I can't seem to think if you win a lottery, they stick you in a small room and you're required to watch at least 2 episodes of the show before that you have the check.
Lacey?
I feel like it's hard for me to just looking at the photo, and I understand that some people are listening, so come and find the photo. The fact of the matter that it says lottery, and then underneath it says the drama, and
yes,
the female person on the cover is wearing like it's like a rhinestone bathing suit, and I'm like, how is no, y'all?
Well, what's interesting is the lottery results used to be like a half-hour show you would watch. They would build up to it.
Yeah.
And then ratings went down, but they still had to show the lottery results. So they would only like make it like 10 minutes and like kind of combine it with like the 7 o'clock news or something funny like that. But it used to be an appointment television thing. You would watch the lottery and you would see if you won or something like that. That's how it happened. And apparently, obviously, they found guest stars in different forms. And, you can see in one of the pictures here, there's a couple. And but it's a drama. So obviously, it touched on the dark side of becoming rich right away.
But this really does show, like in the 80s, like her hair is bigger than her bathing suit.
Oh, yeah. Hair was big. Definitely in the mid 80s. Yeah.
Hair, and the two men are definitely not, they're both looking down at her and they're definitely not looking at her hair.
It's true. Yep. All right. We also like to touch on the top rated TV series from 1984. We do about 3 at a time.
Norm.
And during this time, I'm sorry, what was that, Lacey? Norm. I just remember the famous line is like, Norm, what's going on? Norm said, let's not talk about what's going on, Norm. Let's talk about what's going in, Norm. Of course, Cheers was rated at the time at number 13. Went from 82 to 93. Next, we have Riptide. Splash. Riptide was at number 14. Ran from 84 to 86. And then, of course, very successful at the time, rated is Magnum PI, was is at number 15, ran from 1980 to 88. And what have you got there, Lacey? Let's see what you got.
The full series, the big giant, awesome
Magnum PI. There you go. I know you got Riptide somewhere around there as well.
I do. I couldn't find it. I know it's also there. I do. I will say this. I only have the first season because the second and third seasons, like, they became so hard to find, you couldn't find them, and now you can only get them on eBay for like $300. And I'm like, it's 3 discs. No, thank you. I'm not. That's crazy.
All right. Well, let's get into the main topic of this show, and that topic, of course, is the movie. This, of course, is the Fandom Podcast Network you are listening to. And if you're listening, please check us out on YouTube and check out the video with all the fun slides and pictures we're doing here. And, of course, we are talking about the movies of 1984. As of this recording, they're all 40 years old. And some celebrity film debuts that we like to talk about here, of course. So we do a little bit at a time. And, of course, we have Seth Green was in Billions for Boris. Ari Gross was in Exterminator 2. Corey Haim was in Firstborn. Kadeem Hardison was in Beat Street. And Val Kilmer was in Top Secret. These are all film debuts. And a few of these films are going to be coming up shortly here on 1984 Time Warp. And guys, I came across this recently doing research on 84 on Facebook and such. And here is a fantastic newspaper ad. And I'm going to try and describe it to you guys that are listening. But if you're watching this video, this was a newspaper ad that came out in June of 1984, a New York State, just north of Scranton, Pennsylvania, south of Ithaca. A full page newspaper ad of all the movies that were going on here. And this was for movies that were in the Cinema Endicott, Airport Drive-In, Oakdale Mall Cinemas, Crest Cinema, Cameo Cinema, Bingham Plaza Cinemas, Town Endicott, Ritz Theater, and the V Drive-In. And we have, of course, Gremlins, The Last Starfighter, Sylvester Stallone and Rhinestone, a bunch of these that we're going to talk about here. I love this, though, because these were full page ads, guys, that we would get in like maybe a Sunday newspaper, even in like, a Thursday newspaper when most of the times were changing with the new releases coming out on Friday. You see some of these films, too, that were carrying over. And I love how the Ritz Theater is saying Held Over the Natural, which came out, in the earlier month. But do you guys miss these? I miss these.
Yeah, I miss these because they were always, it was either looking at this or calling the theater, waiting for like the busy signal, like calling 13 times to get through, and then listening to some poor kid who had to be like, The Last Starfighter, noon, 12:37, 2 o'clock,
Yeah.
2:37, like just through everything. And it was always the last movie that they listed. That was the one you were trying to get the time.
Yeah, they did that on purpose. It felt like, and
Yeah.
I love this one here for the V Drive-In. You have Cannonball Run II is now showing, plus Firefox, Clint Eastwood. So you always usually got a double feature. So you would go in there and you'd probably have to watch Firefox first, I'm guessing, and then watch the new release.
No, usually what it would do, they would do it would basically, it's a triple feature, but it's the first showing would be right at dusk, and then they'd have like the 8:30 show of the second movie, and then the first movie would play again at 10 o'clock. So you have the parents would come in and do the double feature with the kids for the early and the main show, and then everybody else, like, the teenagers would come in at the main show and the late show.
I love how they have a lot of these that say held over, like Ghostbusters held over. I love how this, because they're like, yeah, we're selling tickets, let's keep it rolling. But I had to share that because I thought that was a classic stamp in time. Nice. Let's go ahead and hit the movies here, guys. The first one we're going to be discussing is Once Upon a Time in America, released June 1st. Had about, in its theater run, made about $29 million. As boys, they made a pact to share their fortunes, their loves, their lives. As men, they shared the dream to rise from poverty to power, forging an empire built on greed, violence, and betrayal. Their dream would end as a mystery that refused to die. And that's all on the poster, just so you guys know. A former Prohibition-era Jewish gangster returns to the Lower East Side of Manhattan 35 years later, where he must once again confront the ghost and regrets of his old life. Directed by Sergio Leone, stars Robert De Niro, James Wood, Elizabeth McGovern, Treat Williams, Joe Pesci, Danny Aiello, William Forsythe, and Burt Young. Kyle, give us some trivia on Once Upon a Time in America.
This movie could have been really, really long. When filming was completed, the footage ran to a total of 8 to 10 hours. Director Sergio Leone and editor Nino Bargali trimmed the footage to around 6 hours with the plan of releasing the film as 2 3-hour movies. The producers refused this idea, and Leone had to further cut the film down to 3 hours and 49 minutes. But we weren't done with that yet, because a few days before the film's premiere in 1984, Treat Williams found out the 2-hour version, not the 3 hour and 49-minute version, would be shown in theaters. He was heard to have said that no one would understand the movie in the shortened version. Indeed, the film did not do well at theaters and was shut out of the Oscars and received no nominations. When the video cassette and DVD versions were released in the original 3 hour and 49-minute version, the film ultimately found commercial and critical success. And finally, Robert De Niro, going full method acting, requested a private meeting with renowned crime boss Meyer Lansky to prepare for his role as David Noodles Aronson. The request was denied. So, guys, when I didn't learn about this film until the 90s, when I saw the VHS tape on a shelf somewhere. And I was kind of going through a gangster run. I wanted to watch gangster films, and I wanted to watch Scarface again or whatever it was. I was like, what the hell is this Once Upon a Time in America? And why are all these famous people in it? It seemed to kind of die for a while until they kind of re-released that 3-hour version. And I watched it and I liked it. And then of course I bought it on Blu-ray, but it's not one of these films I can rewatch all the time, because you can tell that it was cut down, and there's a lot of long establishing shots for this film that really don't need to be in there. I know it's an artistic choice, but Lacey, have you seen Once Upon a Time in America?
I have not. I don't really do the drama. I will say, though, Sergio Leone is known for having long establishing shots. I mean, yeah. When you said Sergio Leone, and then a few seconds later you said 10 hours, I was like, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. Kyle, do you remember this?
Yeah.
I actually have not seen this movie, and it's
really, wow.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, 3 hours and some odd minutes. That's
I want to say, though, that probably the most famous thing about this movie is not all of the actors that are in it, not the story. It's actually the poster. Yeah, because it's an iconic shot of I think that's the Brooklyn Bridge in New York. And I've seen so many people recreate this shot, because you can do it. You can still like this. You can go check this out because it's such a really cool New York shot. But you know, there's moments in this. There's some character moments in this that are really cool. But man, this movie is just still way too long. And I think Sergio just tried to do too much with it, and it unfortunately did not reach the pantheon of like, I really want to watch a good period piece of gangster thing. You know, go watch Godfather 2 if you want this era.
It should have been a 10-episode miniseries.
Well, that wasn't a thing. That, I mean, yeah, maybe for TV, but you know, it's rated R for a reason, violence and language. But it does touch on a really important part of history with stuff. But you know, the gangsters themselves aren't the real versions of the gangster. If I remember correctly, they're playing versions of them. But you know, it is to some people a cinematic masterpiece, but it didn't quite catch on with the masses. So, but one movie did, guys, and that's our next one, and that is Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. Here we go. This, of course. Lacey, let's go ahead and show our physical media copies here. Looks like you got one there. I got the original double DVD release. Remember these bad boys right here?
Mm-hmm.
This is part of the set, the full first and second. Yeah,
I got that one over there, but when all the new versions came out, there's these old double DVD versions. I can't get it, but I do like the Blu-ray release. That's the one I'd probably watch. But I just love the packaging of these original releases here. But for the posters, I have the original poster up there, but I did not show up, but I did put up the Star Trek III: Search for Spock 40th anniversary poster, because it is coming back to cinemas in 4K June 14th.
Nice.
And I know some people have already had them, and I know it's going to be coming out again. And so I don't know if anyone's going to be able to get a chance to see these or not, but I love the fact that this is coming back to theaters. And of course, it says A Dying Planet, A Fight for Life, A Search for Spock, made about $87 million in its original theatrical run. Admiral Kirk and his bridge crew risked their career stealing the decommissioned USS Enterprise to return the restricted Genesis planet to recover Spock's body, directed, of course, by Leonard Nimoy. And, of course, stars are, of course, regular cast of the original series. But we have Robin Curtis taking over Kirstie Alley's character of Saavik. We have Merritt Betrick, who was forgetting his name, but he was basically Kirk's son, and Christopher Lloyd playing the villain Klingon in this one as well. Kyle, I know you've got us some trivia for this.
Yeah, so you mentioned Robin Curtis filling in for Kirstie Alley. When negotiating Kirstie Alley's contract for Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, Paramount Studios did not offer or include any options or clauses regarding any sequels. Whoops. According to director Leonard Nimoy, this left Alley open to negotiate a new contract for this film, resulting in Alley's excessive salary demands, which led her being dropped and replaced by said Robert Curtis. Interestingly enough, too, production was endangered by the Great Fire at Paramount Studios. William Shatner helped fight the fire and rescue a crew member before firefighting reinforcements arrived. Shatner said his motivation for doing so was purely to save a day on the shooting schedule, as he had to make a deadline to be available for shooting on a new season of TJ Hooker. Personally, I think he just felt like he was doing a scene of TJ Hooker, so he just...
So, guys, what's interesting, that there was this thing that was going on through the 90s and the 2000s of where, it's the even numbers of Star Trek of the original series that are worth watching, and the odd ones suck. I've gone back on that. I actually love Star Trek 2 through 6 for obvious reasons. I'm not a fan of the first one. I went back and rewatched this movie the other day. It's a good one. Great Kirk scenes, of course, and I love Christopher Lloyd as a villain, and the way that we learn about Kirk's son, and he gets killed in it, and we learn about Spock coming back, and then capturing the Klingon bird of prey, which I mentioned at the top of every episode. That comes into play in the next film. I really enjoyed rewatching this again. What are your thoughts on this, Kyle?
I'm going to go back to my own experience with this film, because the first time I saw it, I really think that one of the issues with this film is it's too smart for its own good. I think there's a lot of people who were really confused by it the first time they saw it, with the whole Genesis torpedo and how that was affecting Spock and everything that was going on with it. I think it's one of those films that gets redeemed by later films, but obviously because of the ramifications it has going forward. And I think as you get older and understand a little bit of the science and of the science fiction of this film, I think you have more of an appreciation for it. And I think over time it's become one of those Star Trek films that people have a more appreciation for it now than they did when it first came out.
I think too, it was also the Genesis creating digital effects were ahead of its time as well. It made it was a big deal about that. Lacey, are you a fan of the Trek films of the original series?
Oh yeah, huge fan of all the. Look, if it starts with Star Trek, I'm gonna watch it. Everything. So I think I remember there being like a 2, 4, 6 being the good ones and whatever. I really liked 3 and 5. So I just
Five is so campy for me.
Five is rough.
So much fun.
But there's some great character moments in 5. Yeah. I just really enjoy.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right.
If it comes out in 4K on June 14th, I feel like we're going to be together in Atlanta. We could go.
That's right.
The crew. Like we could.
That's right. Yeah. I'll be out there for my daughter's birthday, and the 3 of us here in Time Warp will be doing a little hanging out together. So that's awesome. Looking forward to that. Yeah. We'll see. I know you got a lot of other 4K. I'm excited to see so too. All right, guys. The next film I got to have a little discussion about here. So the next one is Streets of Fire, made about $5.5 million in its original theatrical run. The poster says, "Tonight is what it means to be young." And this, of course, is directed by Walter Hill. A mercenary is hired to rescue his ex-girlfriend, a singer who's been kidnapped by a motorcycle gang. Stars Michael Paré, Diane Lane. What's that?
Michael Paré.
Paré, yeah. Diane Lane, Rick Moranis, Willem Dafoe, Amy Madigan, Deborah Van Valkenburg, and Bill Paxton. Kyle, give us some trivia.
This was intended to be the first in a trilogy of action films starring Michael Paré as Tom Cody. However, its failure at the box office had to put an end to the project. Despite this, Paré and Deborah Van Valkenburg reprised their roles as Cody and Reva in Road to Hell in 2008. The unofficial sequel to this film, which has not seen an official physical or digital release, though its trailer and renditions of Nowhere Fast Tonight is what it means to be young, and end credits have surfaced online. The Attackers Band were the real-life bandmates of Laurie Sargent, who provided the singing voice for Ellen Aim, Diane Lane. Their band was called Face to Face, and they played mainly new wave music around the Boston area. The group split up in 1988. Walter Hill was so impressed with Diane Lane's work, and who wouldn't be, on this film that he wrote additional scenes for her during the shoot. And finally, according to Walter Hill, the film's origins came out of a desire to make what he thought was a perfect film when he was a teenager and put in all the things that he thought were great and which I still have great affection for. Custom cars, kissing in the rain, neon, trains in the night, high-speed pursuits, rumbles, rock stars, motorcycles, jokes in tough situations, leather jackets, and a question of honor and a partridge in a pear tree.
Jokes in tough situations. Yes. Okay. So this brings up a conversation I want to ask you guys. I pulled this meme and I follow this Facebook group, and Ranker says in 1984, the legend of 48 hours, the legend behind 48 hours and the Warriors made one of the most unclassifiable movies of the decade. Is it a gangster movie, a fantasy noir, a rock and roll musical, a Western? Yes, and yes. It was meant to be a trilogy with part 2 set in the snow, part 3 in the desert. Just one problem: nobody saw it. Real ones know we got robbed of an epic franchise. And I wanted to bring this up, guys, because this was meant to be a trilogy. It didn't happen. And I was rewatching this just the other day, and I love this movie for so many reasons, but it is a weird movie. A lot of this stuff thrown in. There's a lot of music, and a lot of people, when I put up a post about the movie, was saying the soundtrack is great. And it is great because you got Ry Cooder in there doing a lot of music, a lot of his original stuff in it as well. If you had to say when it took place, I would say the late 50s, maybe early 60s, but it's got a late 50s vibe. The car that he drives is a 1951 Mercury. And it's got guns and motorcycles. Diane Lane is killing it as this rock star, even though she's not really singing it, but she's awesome in it. I don't really know how you would classify this. Lacey, what is your thoughts? How would you classify Streets of Fire?
One of Willem Dafoe's early films. Boom. Just call it. Because he's known for doing stuff that's either, he's just got some, he's an amazing actor. But if you look at
this outfit of like these,
right.
He's wearing nothing but hip waders, and he's got the bare shoulders at first.
Yep.
It's not till the rumble at the end he actually looks cool.
Yeah, so just saying Willem Dafoe's first film and letting people like take it from there, because you can't classify. It's one of the first movies that was kind of a genre bender. A lot of times it didn't have, there weren't a lot of cross genre films at the time.
You also had Elizabeth Daily, who didn't sing in it, and of course she was off of Valley Girl. You also had Ed Begley Jr. in it as well. Michael T. Williamson. It had a lot of people in this thing. Kyle, how would you describe Streets of Fire?
Should have been a Netflix movie. Ahead of its time. But really, this is the movie I feel like now. If we can get Rebel Moon on Netflix, we could have gotten Streets of Fire on Netflix with a great marketing thing, because it is just so different now. And I think people would be a lot more open-minded to it now than they would have been back in the 80s.
I feel like it's even just looking at the cover of it, it looks like a scene from Blade Runner, the cover of the picture, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like honestly, if you had thrown Muppets into it, it would have been everything.
Again, I think this comes back to the fact that the director and writer were basically, we wanted to do a movie about everything we liked. And I think that was basically it. Forget the script. We're just going to make sure it has the things we like in it. And that's and because of that, it's a bizarre 18 different directions, no focused energy to it mess, but it's so unique and so bizarre that it has its place in Hollywood lore.
I feel too it was a passion project for Walter Hill, because he had juice at this time. Yeah. 48 Hours come out. He had done Warriors. He's also a producer on a crap load of other great films. So, and he's been doing that for a while. I've been doing the directing and producing side of it. And I feel like he was just like, you know what, I'm going to make the film I want to make with the people I want to make, and throw in a bunch of stuff that I like personally, which is kind of what we just, said to you earlier in the trivia. And what's interesting too, is that it was a complete flop here in the States. And I was reading some other trivia about this, guys, that apparently it was a huge hit in the Asian market, especially in Japan.
Makes sense.
It won some awards too, I want to say. I wanted to read from this here because, and James Horner wrote 3 different original scores for this film before he was ultimately left the project in favor of director Walter Hill's preferred composer, Ry Cooder. So you had some other people involved in this that were kind of important with this. And it's really, really weird. And, and it was so popular that and I'm trying to find the trivia here, in the Asian market, that it inspired a lot of anime, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know this?
Oh yeah. There is a lot of anime, especially anime that came out in the mid to late 80s, that if you were to watch it, you go, where have I seen some of this before? Oh, that's right. A lot of especially like a lot of cyberpunk anime that came out around that time.
Yeah, I was trying to find the internet. It says here too that Daryl Hannah was pursued as the female lead, but opted to do Splash instead. I got to throw a question out here, guys. Michael Paré. Keep saying his name. I just can't get it in my head. I don't think he's a great actor. He's charismatic. Why wasn't he a thing? He was good looking. I don't know if that was the reason why this movie didn't do
too many
well.
other big names. Many other big names who had major hits on their hands.
Well, but also I think he was kind of like he chose very specific roles. He liked to be an actor. He liked to pick his, and he did a lot of theater though. But I mean, the last time I saw him was in, I don't know, Hope Floats, where he played the ex-husband. I mean, I couldn't off the top of my head. I could name 4 Michael Cera movies, maybe 5.
And that's the problem. I'm looking at his IMDb right now, and it's rough. I mean, and the thing was, he was coming up. I mean, he was hot out of the gates because he did 30 episodes.
Nope. Cut. All right, Kyle, put you on mute there. We had a little issue with your mic there.
That was a lot. Yeah, I think he did a lot of theater. So, when with IMDb, it's not going to show it, but there were. I remember hearing, because you see the movie when I saw it in The Cruisers, I was like, this guy's amazing. Who is this guy? When are we going to see him again?
Yeah, he was charismatic in that. I loved him in that. But I think the person that really stood out for me in this, and I did have a little crush on her too, is Deborah Van Valkenburg. I liked her. I think she went on to do that. What was the sitcom that she went on to do? Trying to remember it though, but I like her career as well. I loved Amy Mannigan in this, how she was kind of like trying to prove herself as like the badass sidekick in this, and she did. I thought she was great. But then Bill Paxton was just coming in and just like killing it each time he would come in and do something. I'm gonna check with Kyle. Kyle, how's your audio there? You're still getting a little buzz there, man. All right, I'm gonna keep you on mute there until you figure that out. Let me know. All right, the next film that we have here, guys, is Beat Street. I love this poster here. Scratching and making it, rapping and breaking it on the street. Beat Street came out June 8th, made close to $17 million. An aspiring DJ from the South Bronx and his best friend, a promoter, tried to get into the show business by exposing people to hip-hop music and the local culture. The gang wars and violence of the 60s have given way to the hip-hop culture. No longer do warlords and their gangs roam the streets possessively guarding their territory, but rather breakdancers, rappers, DJs, and graffiti artists have expanded their territory and goals beyond immediate physical borders. Directed by Stan Latham, stars Ray Don Chong, Guy Davis, Jean Charadiet, and Melly Mel. Do you guys have your? What's funny is I actually have 2 versions of this. I got this Beat Street here, and then I've got the Ray Don Chong one because she was the big star that went out there. Kyle, what's going on with you? You all right?
Okay, first I want to make sure you guys aren't hearing me buzz because I couldn't hear it.
I got you.
Okay, so
All
you guys have to bear with me. Can I just jump in here because I need to get something off my chest?
Sure, go for it.
Beat Street breakdown. Beat Street is the king of the beat. You see him rocking that beat from across the street, and Beat Street is a lesson too because you can't let the streets beat you.
I have Beat Street, and I here.
I didn't think you were going to go there, Kyle, but that was good. I like that. you make up for your sound issue you had earlier. That was great. I love the original Beat Street version here. I actually remember seeing this too in the theater because the Breakin' movies had come out. And but guys, what's interesting about this? Well, you know what, Kyle? Why don't you read some trivia first? Because I got an interesting take with this one.
Okay, give me 1 second here because I had to do a little bit of closing down of things when I got to get my
no
mic
worries.
fixed.
You got it or want me to get it? You got it?
I'm gonna be right there. 2
All right.
seconds.
Lacee, I know you're looking for your copy. You have it there? You're like trying to find it. I can't see it. You're like, I want to show my copy.
In my
Okay, so
I know I have it. I just don't know where it is.
Okay, so here's a little trivia. Most of the graffiti art that was displayed all throughout the film was not done by real graffiti artists. It was airbrushed by set decorators. However, 2 graffiti artists were hired as creative consultants for the film, including Bill Cordero, aka Blast, and Lonnie Wood, aka Phase 2, who is also referenced in the movie during the subway graffiti scene. About 80% of the footage in the original theatrical trailer is not included in the final cut. The trailer also includes an alternate version of the title song performed by Kool Moe Dee, who appears in the film in the Christmas rap and sequence with the rest of the Treacherous Three, which also did not appear in the movie nor on the original soundtrack albums. Vin Diesel admitted on Jimmy Kimmel that he was an extra in this film.
Ah, there you go. So, oh wait, hold on. Lacee's found it. I think she has the one I have. There you go. Well, but you got the Blu-ray. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's an Arrow release. No, it's an Olive
Nice.
release. It's Olive film, so it's one of the fat ones.
Gotcha.
So
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so I remember watching this, but when I saw this in the theater, what surprised me about it was more of a real reality of what was happening in New York. Kyle's pointing at me like he needs to interject something.
I remember when. No, I just hang on.
I'm in the middle of something here, Kyle. So what you got?
No, go. Don't finish your point, then I'll get to it because there's a big thing with this film and another film.
What really surprised me, not about the breakdancing in this film, and also the early stars that you see. My favorite scene in the movie, by the way, is when they're trying out all the new acts to play in the club, because there's some like real people there, which is interesting if you look them up. But was the cultural impact of graffiti artists and tagging the subways and looking for literally the elusive white whale, in this case, the white brand new subway that you would chase down and try to tag before anyone else did, but then other taggers tagging over your work, and how that did start real beef. And someone dies of that in this film because of it. And that was a big deal. Like, oh my crap, this thing took a real turn here. Kyle, what were you going to say?
So here's the thing with Beat Street, because everybody was coming off of like this uplifting, like friendly version of Breakin'. Right. And everybody was saying, and then this came out, and a lot of people weren't ready for the reality of and the more realism of Beat Street and the hardcore side of Beat Street. So this movie got a lot of flack. And I remember when it came out too, the soundtrack to this movie was on fire. You could not find this soundtrack. It was, and I know a couple of people was listening it to school and actually got kicked out of school because they were playing the soundtrack in their Walkman. And the teacher found out. But yeah, this movie really, I think, is also kind of the movie that really started that cultural movie. This is kind of like the cultural beginnings to where we end up with like New Jack City and Juice and movies like that. This movie really is kind of the grandfather for those films.
Lacee, I want to get your thoughts. Lacee, I want to get your thoughts. But one thing before I forget, I wanted to mention that I love movies in New York in the late 70s and early 80s, because the one thing that you see predominantly, especially in this film, is how many buildings that weren't occupied, that were like, people would crash and do nefarious things, or maybe if you were homeless, there was so much property that was just left unattended that you see in these movies. And this was a good example of that. Lacee, what are your thoughts on Beat Street? I know you got the Blu-ray. Throw that up again. That's pretty cool.
Okay, so I think this is what you get, and reasonably so. This is what happened. This is what you get when you have an African American director telling an African American story. Yeah. Like, this isn't like Breakin' was not. It was. I want to say Joel Silberg, maybe.
But it was a Cannon film, if I remember correctly, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think that this is an African American director telling an African American story, and it's got a point of view that people needed to hear at the time, and I don't think people were ready to hear it.
I think you're right.
So when you have like Breakin' 2, those were obviously done as a like people against the man kind of a thing.
But more of a fun approach.
A lot more simple on the dancing, and the fact of the matter is that the daughter of the bad guy was like on their side, and it was it was more of like a class thing as opposed to a race thing in
good point.
Breakin'. And so I think that this is something that people weren't ready to listen to. They didn't want to hear it. They wanted to go and see like fun dancing and somebody popping off to the corporate guy. And this was about race relations. This was about the way it was in certain areas of the city.
Harry Belafonte gets some credit for some of the music. But also, I did want to mention this poster here. It says, with the incredible New York City Breakers, the Rocksteady Crew, and the sensational music of Grandmaster Melly Mel and the Furious Five, African Bambaataa, and the Soul Sonic Force plus Shango, and many more. And you get to see these people actually performing these, which is great. And so it had a huge cultural movement because of that. And a lot of us watching this for the first time, this is the first time we were exposed to this music, especially on the West Coast. And especially like Kool D, he did the Wild Wild West song, but he'd been around for like a long time. But yeah, you're right, Lacey. It was a more serious tone, and I think that it has been revered because of that. It did take it showed you life on the street. And as much as I love the music, as much as I love the dancing in this, I really was drawn to the chasing and the graffiti part of it, because I thought that was fascinating. Learning about
also,
that.
It's
culture.
got a really good, solid, like that is a very solid look at the costuming. Like the costuming was fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, agreed.
Because
completely. Yeah.
it was one of those things where you'd see like, the guys walking around wife beaters and stuff, but then when you see, the actual, dancing and stuff, like with all the match, it was an interesting thing. Yeah.
This movie and the breaking movies, they were a trendsetter when it came to fashion. I was watching the fashion, like I was zeroed in on it when I was rewatching this, and I was like, I saw people started wearing that stuff after this movie came out. If they weren't already wearing it. So yeah, it was great. So, all right, guys, the next film I think we've heard of, Ghostbusters. They're here to save the world. Ghostbusters made almost $300 million, about $295 million. Starring, of course, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, Harold Ramis, Rick Moranis, Annie Potts, Ernie Hudson, and William. Yes, this man has no dick, Atherton. 3 parapsychologists forced out of their university funding set up a shop as a unique ghost removal service in New York City, attracting frightened yet skeptical customers. And of course, directed by Ivan Reitman. And of course, we get the Ghostbusters song. Kyle, give us some trivia first before we go into some fun talking some Ghostbusters. And yeah, Lacey, hold up your as well, and I will hold up mine.
Ghostbusters, 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 Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I didn't do the 2-pack because I'm trying to conserve space. I only have.
I'm sorry. You mean this one as well? I got all 3.
No, this one's it's like the card. It's like a book.
Oh, you got the book version.
It's the 30th anniversary, and it's got like the little booklet and everything.
Come on, you guys! I'll just see you in the afterlife.
I have a question about these, but Kyle, give us some trivia first.
Not surprisingly, almost none of the scenes were filmed as scripted. Most had at least one ad-lib line, and of course, Bill Murray's lines were all ad-libbed. So, in the middle of the film's initial release, to keep interest going, Ivan Reitman ran a trailer that was basically the commercial the Ghostbusters used in the movie, but the 555 number was replaced with an 1-800 number, allowing people to actually call in. Callers got a recorded message of Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd saying something to the effect, "Hi, we're out catching ghosts right now." They got 1,000 calls per hour, 24 hours a day for several weeks. Here's an interesting thing, because it's also a kind of a sliding doors casting couch moment. The character of Winston, of course, played by the great Ernie Hudson, was meant to have joined the team much earlier and would have been slimed at the hotel. When Eddie Murphy declined the role, the script was rewritten to have Winston appear about halfway through the film. And finally, on the set, Dan Aykroyd referred to the Slimer ghost as the ghost of John Belushi. Slimer's gluttonous eating was based on Belushi's cafeteria scene in National Lampoon's Animal House.
Can you guys imagine if Eddie Murphy was cast in this? I mean, don't get me wrong. I love me some Ernie Hudson, and I'm so happy he's in this. But what kind of movie would it have been?
It would have been an Eddie Murphy movie.
Yeah, he would have dominated it.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy is I love Eddie Murphy. Okay, but there are some people, some actors where they like Eddie Murphy. An Eddie Murphy movie is Eddie Murphy playing in a movie. It's not, there are very few films where you would see Eddie Murphy and not be like, oh. I mean,
I think you're right on that. I had to touch on that. It's huge.
I think.
Okay, guys. I know I went to the theater to see this. Everyone was seeing this. Kyle, tell us about the first time you saw Ghostbusters and the impact it had.
That's a story at my house. The first time I saw Ghostbusters, my mom forced my half sister to take me with her and her girlfriends to go see Ghostbusters because I wouldn't leave her alone about it, which worked out great for me because I had a huge crush on my sister's best friend at the time. So not only it was the kid crush, but not only do I get to see Ghostbusters, which just annoyed my sister that she had to take me along, but it was, Ghostbusters is just it is easily still in my top 20 all-time films. This is Ghostbusters is pretty close to a perfect movie. You talk about Eddie Murphy being part of the cast. If you would have thrown Eddie Murphy in with that, you ruin the chemistry of Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and Dan Aykroyd. And because Harold Ramis and Bill Murray already have that classic chemistry with Stripes, you just add in Dan Aykroyd from Second City TV experience and everything like that. And it's just amazing chemistry. This film is funny. This film keeps you on the edge of your seat. In my opinion, one of the best movies Sigourney Weaver has ever looked in. And yeah, she's a dog.
Lacee, your thoughts on Ghostbusters?
I don't know if I saw this in the theater when it first came the first time around because I was 11. And I'm pretty sure, I might have, but I don't recall it because I was 11, not even 11. I was still 10. I didn't turn 11 until July. So I feel like I probably first saw this on HBO, probably a couple years later, or maybe when Ghostbusters 2 was about to come out. You know how they would always bring out everything on HBO the month before or whatever.
So what was it like first seeing it on HBO or when you saw it?
I dug it. I really did. There was the taxi driver. The taxi driver, like that's the one that scared me. Like I remember very specifically, like every time I saw it, I would end up doing this, and for quite some time, which was nice because they brought the taxi driver back in the most recent film. And I was like, oh, that's there's the one that scared me. So,
I like both Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and it was fun to rewatch these and, and prepping for this. And one of the things, besides the Ray Parker Jr. song, one of the things I don't think gets a lot of love is the actual music of this film. It's really, really good. It stands out. And I don't think it gets enough attention on it. It's got a great cast, great New York film. Kyle, you got some more thoughts on it?
Oh no, you're just talking about the music, and I was thinking about one of my favorite scenes in this movie is when Peck shuts down the containment field and all the ghosts escape, and you've got that song, I Believe It's Magic, playing as all these ghosts are starting to haunt and everywhere in New York City. It's such a great visual, a great effect, and you add in that song has got this kind of ethereal sound to it, and you put it. It was one of my favorite scenes in that movie without a question.
I remember Ghostbusters stickers everywhere, T-shirts everywhere.
That poster was everywhere.
It is one of the most famous images in movie history, I would have to say. And I love the fact that the original what do you call it? Firehouse is still there, and we have the recent 2 films that really paid tribute to the original trilogy and brought back the cast. Yes, Lacee.
Did you get your popcorn buckets for the new one?
Did not. I did not.
They were gone.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, I and what's interesting too is I got the new Blu-ray release of Ghostbusters 1 and 2 because it came with digital. But Kyle, this was the original 2 DVD set that I've had for years, and I actually got rid of it because I had this new kind of, what is it, the double feature gift set with the kind of green Slimer thing, and it had some new special features on the back, including 2 episodes of the animated series. But I had to go back and get this at a thrift store, the original 2-pack. It just, I miss it. Show us. Yeah.
Lacee gets that. I just have one question for you.
Oh, yeah.
What do you do when somebody asks you if you're a god, Kevin?
You tell them you're a god. Lacee, show us your Ghostbusters popcorn bucket. And which one is it?
Right. So first of all, opening.
Don't look into the trap. Don't look into it.
The drink. This is the one from AMC.
Okay.
It has the option of the happy face.
That's the Stay Puft Marshmallow. All right. Remember, we got listeners here. So we got to let them know what it is.
Oh, yes. So this is Stay Puft Marshmallow. This is the drink. So it had a little straw at the top.
What have you done, Ray?
to change his attitude. This is the ghost trap from Regal.
Don't look into the trap.
Wasn't there also the proton gun too? Didn't someone have that?
I didn't see the proton gun.
No.
But this is the AMC bucket, which is, sorry about the noise. It actually has, it looks like it's open, so you can put your popcorn in the top.
That is amazing. If you're listening to this, it's hard to describe these things. They are amazing. That is really, really cool. So yeah.
The proton pack you're thinking of, Kevin, Hasbro, as part of their HasLab series, did a really awesome proton pack.
I swear that I saw the gun, the proton actual gun as a popcorn bucket as well. But Kyle, did you want to ask me about the? Oh, look at that, Lacey. That is fantastic.
Yeah, and this one actually has like batteries in the bottom. It lights up.
That looks like you could actually pop popcorn with that one.
You can push the buttons and it lights up when you. It's got like knobs.
Look directly into the trap.
Kyle, did you have a question when I was holding up the DVDs and Blu-rays?
No, you were good. We're good.
Okay. All right. Cool. That's amazing, Lacey. That is very, very cool.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna set this down to the side and not make any more noises.
Yeah. It's. We don't know if we're gonna do it, but it is on the list for possible CPT because we're celebrating its 4th anniversary.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, it's happening. Okay, good. All right, guys. The next film, of course, and I've got a hot take about this film. This is Gremlins. This was very popular, made $152 million in its initial run here. And of course, and I got to show a picture here while I do this. I got the 2 posters up there, which is great. The one that kind of teases the gremlin. It's you see the paws sticking out of the box. And then of course you see the picture of Gizmo. And I have a little Gizmo here. I did want to show this.
Oh, yay.
Got a little Gizmo. Isn't he cute? Look at the little.
Yeah.
Yes. And Lacey, you're holding up your Gremlins there. I am holding up my Gremlins 2 film collection with the cool new updated slipcover because you got Stripe on one side and then you got the back of the 2 film collection there.
This is the 30th anniversary, and then I actually put my original DVD just in it.
Very nice, very nice.
When I updated.
I did want to show this picture here though. Here's a picture of Gremlins and Back to the Future. They use the same backlot with the church and everything. They just put a lot of snow and changed some things around for Gremlins.
It's the Gilmore Girls Town Square.
There you go. Yes. So a young man inadvertently breaks 3 important rules concerning his new pet and unleashes a horde of mischievous and very mean monsters on a small town. Directed by Joe Dante. Writer was Chris Columbus. Starring Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, Hoyt Axton, Key Luke, Corey Feldman, and Judge Reinhold. Kyle, you're the trivia master. Give us some trivia on Gremlins.
Well, the most important trivia is by this movie, you now know why I don't feed Kevin after midnight and I keep Lacey away from water. So
I turn into this.
Yeah. Originally, Stripe and Gizmo were supposed to be the same character. This changed when executive producer Steven Spielberg, he's kind of smart and he knows what he's talking about, insisted one of the Gremlins be a good guy with whom the audience could identify. Director Joe Dante expresses that this decision was the reason why this film is fondly remembered. It's Steven Spielberg to talk about. In Cantonese, however, Mogwai means devil, demon, or gremlin. The Mandarin pronunciation is Mogai, and an early attempt to have monkeys play the gremlin was abandoned because the test monkey panicked when it was made to wear a gremlin head. You think?
Can you imagine that? I'm sorry. It's just so funny.
So I have to add in for me, Gremlins was a movie. It was probably the biggest movie I was most excited for the summer. When Ghostbusters and Gremlins hit on HBO, it was responsible for me having the greatest double feature VHS all-time tape. I had Ghostbusters and Gremlins on one VHS tape.
Nice.
Same.
So, but no, I love this movie.
Go ahead, Kyle. This is it's you now. Go for it.
Yeah, I love this movie. I was so excited for this movie. Me and one of my best friends in high school, we ended up getting our moms to arrange a slumber party around this movie. It's just so much fun, and it Gizmo's cute. The Gremlins are creepy as hell when you really think about it. And the interesting thing about this movie is how it borderlines on comedy, but still has that meant to make you jump. I mean, I remember the Gremlins in the Christmas tree, and that was pretty.
It's borderline horror film.
Yeah, it really can be at times. I would not be showing this to younger children, but it's a great execution of an idea, and just one of those movies that hits so many different genres, whether intends to or not. Whereas with Gremlins 2, they played it up a lot more on the silly, campy side than they really did with the first Gremlins.
Yeah. Lacey, your thoughts on Gremlins?
Okay, if this was released today, it would be rated R.
Yep.
It would be a children's movie. This movie affected me as a child. Like, it affected
You're not
me.
alone. Yeah.
The story where she tells about her dad, and he's like trapped he died in the chimney because he was trapped. I mean, what are you? This is no. Like, I just wanted to roll up a newspaper and smack somebody. Oh my goodness. I have thoughts. I have feelings. I will say that my favorite part about this movie is the mean old lady, Flo from Alice's Diner. All of her cats are named after currencies. You don't notice it until you've seen it like the 37th time. That all of us, because you hear her call one of them Marks, and you hear her call another one of them Frank, but then she calls one of them Dollar Bill, and you're like, wait, no, like what? Yeah, so that's kind of like a little Easter egg that I don't know if it might be on a trivia somewhere, but I thought that was really, because she's the miser, she's the one who, the lady who's horrible and mean, whatever. But yeah, this is one of those movies where it's not just you had one thing to do. You had one thing to do. It's you had three things to do, and you screwed up all of them.
Yep.
Spectacularly.
So I got a hot take on this, guys. I don't like this movie anymore. It's nothing with it being scary. It's nothing it being attached to a Christmas movie. Phoebe Cates doesn't save it for me anymore. I hadn't watched this film, I want to say, all the way through for like the last 10 to 15 years, to be honest with you. I was never drawn to want to watch it before. I'd seen parts of it, of course, recently, before I did the rewatch for this podcast. I used to watch it on a regular basis. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it. I don't enjoy watching this movie anymore. I don't enjoy the premise anymore. I don't find it cute anymore. I don't find it fun anymore, and I can't explain it.
It's because now, well, first of all, you're a father now. Okay, so all the stuff with Phoebe Cates and like her dad and all that kind of stuff is terrible. Then on top of everything else, it was like, I mean, there's like there's the science stuff where he's like poking at, and like that's like, you don't test on a mogwai, that's just meat. Like, so you're showing like animal testing, or at least a little bit of it.
There's animal cruelty in it.
No, that was the second one. You're thinking the second one.
Okay. Well, either way, there's animal cruelty in it when you spray water. The whole like nope.
Yeah. Kyle, what are your thoughts? Why don't I like Gremlins anymore?
And the poor dog.
I think, Kevin, it's in part because we talked about this movie falls into a lot of different categories, and it never really settles into one category. So when you go back and rewatch it, I want to watch cute Gizmo, but then you've got horrifying Gremlins with Stripe. And then you're watching people being stupid with the rules too. Yeah. And you've got, and let's be honest, there's a lot of aspects and things that happen in Gremlins that just don't fly in today's culture.
Right. I mean, the way they treated the portrayal of the older gentleman that sold him the mogwai.
Yeah.
There was some stuff with that. Like,
I think I bought this at Walmart, this two-part, because you know how they released these new slip covers, and I knew that we were going to come around in 1984, and I bought this maybe last year, the year before, but I didn't own it until recently again, because I was trying to figure that out too. I'm like, why didn't I at least own it? I'm not keeping this. I'm not watching these movies again. Unless someone else is curious about them, we might watch them. But for whatever it is, as revered as this movie is, and I know some people even like the sequel, I have no interest in ever wanting to watch this again. It's weird. I don't know.
Here's another reason for this too. Unlike Ghostbusters, when was the last time Gremlins was really in the television cable cycle? Yeah, I can't think of the last time Gremlins was in the television cable cycle.
Yeah, it's kind of a nasty little film, the way it's aged, and the way it came out and the way it did scare younger people. But you know what? I got my Mugwai here. I got Gizmo. He's really cute. I got a little toy here. I'm holding this in front of the video so people can see it. For those of you
In
listening,
fact,
he's really
there's
cute.
supposed to be a Gremlins animated series that to come out, and it's been delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed.
There was supposed to be a Gremlins 3 that never came out.
And for the record, I have obeyed the rules with this guy. So I just want to put that out there. This guy is gonna stay around. The DVD of Gremlins 1 and 2 is not. I'm just gonna say. All right, guys. The next film is a weird little film I had never heard of until I was doing the research for this month of June 1984. And that is a Rutger Hauer film called A Breed Apart. Came out June 22nd. Apparently, it only made $50,000 in its theatrical release. I'm going to read the poster here because posters, we love 80s posters. One man protects a secret, the other tries to steal it. And only one woman can stop them from destroying each other. Together, they are a breed apart. Starring Rutger Hauer, Powers Booth, Kathleen Turner, Donald Pleasance, Brian James. Jim Malden, played by Rutger Hauer, a Vietnam veteran who has lost his wife and child, lives in the recluse of an island full of rare birds. His only contact with humanity are Stella, played by Kathleen Turner, and her young son, Adam, who have a small supply store on the mainland. One day, a mountain climber named Mike Walker, played by Powers Booth, brings a visit to the island to observe two rare eagles. What he doesn't tell Jim is he's hired by an egg collector, played by Donald Pleasance, to steal the eagles' eggs. Directed by Philip Mora. Kyle, give us some trivia on A Breed Apart.
After principal filming in North Carolina was finished, the film reels were sent back by plane to Los Angeles, California. One reel was out of 4 and never arrived, so this movie was substantially reorganized around the missing scenes, shot out of order in editing. This partly explains why some subplots are incomplete and Jim Malden has no backstory. And of course, Rutger Hauer and Brian James previously appeared in Blade Runner. Kevin,
I'm sorry. Say that again, Kyle. Your audio cut out. Say that last part. Trivia.
Rutger Hauer and Brian James previously appeared together in Blade Runner.
Yes.
I just
never. Sorry. Yep.
I'm just gonna say, people had to owe somebody favors to be in this movie because there's a hell of a cast in this movie.
Has anyone seen this film?
No, I have.
Okay, it is playing on Amazon. If you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free.
Okay.
I was curious about it. I'm a Rutger Hauer fan. I have not seen all of his films, but I did hit up my wife because she's a huge Rutger Hauer fan. She had not seen it. She said, I was telling her kind of about it. She says, well, instead watch the 1991 film Past Midnight, which co-starred Clancy Brown, because she's a huge Clancy Brown fan, and also Natasha Richardson, rest in peace. But anyway, I just thought it was really weird that there's a guy who has a rare egg collection, Donald Pleasance, who funds this guy who's a climber, played by Powers Booth, to try to steal these eggs. And there's a nasty little scene with Brian James and his guys who try to seek revenge and kill some birds and animals. And it's a tough scene to watch if you're an animal lover. It's a weird little film. It's got kind of a cute ending because at the end you see, of course, Rutger Hauer and Kathleen Turner finally get together. It's kind of nice. Powers Booth doesn't do the dirty deed. He learns his way, and so that's kind of cool. But it's just a weird little film. It's filmed in and around North Carolina. It's okay if you want to see it. It's interesting for the area that they film it in. But it's a weird film because you're right, Kyle. There's a lot of people in this, but it didn't go anywhere. It didn't do anything. Kathleen Turner, of course, keep in mind, just came off of what was released in the theater, of course, Romancing the Stone. It is a weird little film. Lacee.
How does one, egg collector. Let's just start with that. Do you fossilize? Is there a way to, because eggs, after a certain point, eggs are a perishable item.
Yeah, I don't know, but when you watch this movie, you see his enormous egg collection, and he doesn't care if it means that this rare bird goes extinct after you get the eggs. And it's a weird villain turn, and you see him and you see all these eggs, and then of course his nefarity or whatever comes to light later on in a news report, because that's when Powers Booth kind of turns tail, saying, you know what, I'm going to give the real story here. I'm not going to follow through with this guy's deed. And you know, so it has kind of a happy ending, because you see what happens. But yeah, Lacey.
It feels like this whole movie could have been avoided if Powers Booth had just looked at him and been like, weird flex, but okay.
Yes, this is true. Yeah.
Like,
but anyway, let's get on to the next film. This is a little more famous for many, many reasons, and that is The Karate Kid, made about $90 million in its original theatrical release. A martial arts master agrees to teach karate to a bullied teenager. He taught him the secret of karate lies in the minds and heart, not in the hands. The Karate Kid, directed by John G. Avildsen, stars Ralph Macchio, Pat Morita, Elizabeth Shue, William Zabka, and Martin Kove. Kyle, give us some trivia on The Karate Kid.
Ralph Macchio, who still looks like he's probably 22, was actually 22 during the filming. Some of the cast did not believe him when they asked him about his age. The yellow classic automobile that Daniel polishes in the famous wax-on, wax-off training scene, then later offered by Mr. Miyagi as Daniel's birthday gift, was actually given to Ralph Macchio by the producer, and Ralph still owns it. The car is a 1948 Ford Super Deluxe.
Oh, such a cool car. Oh.
yeah.
The studio wanted to drop the drunk Miyagi scene, feeling it slowed the pace down. Director John G. Avildsen argued for it and has felt it was the scene that got Pat Morita nominated for an Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
The extras were so caught up in the tournament scene that they would boo William Zabka even when the cameras were not rolling. Zabka's mother was in the crowd and kept trying to tell the people that he was actually very nice in real life. And interestingly enough, Pat Morita himself designed the Banzai logo that was sewn into Daniel's gi.
Lacey, you held up something. Explain the autograph that you have there on your Blu-ray collection there.
So I got my little Blu-ray up here, and I had
just the first film.
Just the first one. Yeah, but the second one's over there. We're not talking about that one yet. So this is my DVD or Blu-ray is signed by Ralph Macchio. It says wax on. And then Martin Kove signed it. No mercy, Marty Sensei Kove. So, and they were both super, super sweet. Dragon Con folks. They had come to Dragon Con separate years, oddly. So yeah.
Okay, cool. This was, I remember when I saw this in the theater. I remember who I was with. I remember which theater that I went to. Obviously saw it more than once. It was a big deal. We were all, rooting for Daniel LaRusso, and we loved the scenes and the evil Johnny and the Cobra Kai and all that kind of stuff. And we were all on that train for a very long time until we got older and the Cobra Kai TV series came out. And now there's a lot of memes out there saying, well, maybe it was, maybe it was, Mr. Ralph Macchio's character being the jerk and deserving it and blah, blah, blah. So I'm throwing a lot out there. We've all seen social media. We've all kind of joked about it. Some of us feel differently about it. Lacey, you really want to jump in on this. So I'm going to let you go.
If you are a fan of How I Met Your Mother, Barney Stinson, that's what he wanted for his birthday, was to meet his hero. And yes. the whole thing, the whole time you see this, the gags going on and on and on. And it turns out that the guy in the costume is William Zabka, who and it's just delightful. And it's so fun and so sweet and so hilarious. And I think that How I Met Your Mother is one of the reasons. I think that hot take is one of the reasons that Cobra Kai got greenlit. I think you're right. I really do. And also,
absolutely, I would buy that, definitely.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen, there's like a 3 or 7 minute short of that Ralph Macchio and William Zabka did after the fact, 20 years later. It's out there on YouTube. Just Google Google the two of their names and then short, and it's really funny. A lot.
Kyle. your thoughts on the Karate Kid and now how we look at it.
You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. Greatest
One of the classic
musical-
80s movie songs of all time.
Yeah, great montaging. This was a special film. This film came out and people were going to see it 3 and 4 times because it was a family film too. I saw this movie with my parents.
Me too.
Great date film too.
Yeah.
Excellent date film.
Pat Morita was a force in this movie, and he deserved that Oscar nomination. I still say he deserved to win that Oscar. This movie is something magical, and I am going all the kidding aside with Cobra Kai and everything like that. The greatest bully movie of all time. That's my hot take. It's also.
I'm gonna go with that in My Bodyguard. My Bodyguard is definitely up there. So yeah,
that's up there. But I think
good call.
In the general populace, this film, Machio is so good. Obviously, Pat Morita is fantastic. Zabka is fantastic. Everything about this movie just hits perfectly. It's a great time capsule for the 80s at that time period. And just outstanding performances from top to bottom.
Yeah, it was a big deal, and it still is. It's one of the most rewatchables. And I just got one question before we move on, guys. So I've got this Karate Kid collection that has all 4 of the Karate Kid films, including, of course, the one with Hilary Swank. And then I found this one that has all 5. Of course, the one that says has. Of course, Will Smith's son with Jackie Chan. I don't want both of these. I'm kind of favoring just the original 4 that were out for a while because I don't know. What should I do?
I actually didn't mind the one with Jackie Chan. It's just I don't call it the Karate Kid.
It should be the Kung Fu Kid. That's what it should have been called.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know which one to keep. If I should keep them both.
But also, they're about to do another Karate Kid, though, right? So there's a new one coming out where Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan together. So they're combining the 2 different series. So
maybe I should hold on to that one then. So there we go.
How that's going to connect them before you decide to get rid of that other one.
All right, good call. All right, guys. The next film we have is The Pope of Greenwich Village, made just over $6 million, and this, of course, starred Eric Roberts, Mickey Rourke, and Daryl Hannah. Stars Stuart Rosenberg. Charlie and his troublesome cousin Paulie decide to steal $150,000 in order to back a sure thing racehorse that Paulie has inside information on. The aftermath of the robbery gets him into serious trouble with the local mafia boss and corrupt New York City Police Department. Kyle, you got a couple of trivia for us for The Pope of Greenwich Village?
Nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, Geraldine Page was on screen in only 2 scenes with a total running time of approximately 8 minutes. When Page was Oscar nominated, she became the first woman to receive 7 nominations without a win, a feat also achieved by actors Richard Burton and Peter O'Toole. She would finally win an Oscar on her 8th nomination the next year for The Trip to Bountiful. The film's closing credits dedication states Mickey Rourke's performance is dedicated to the memory of James Hayden, 1953 to 1983. Hayden was an actor friend of Rourke's who passed away around the time this movie was made. And finally, according to author Christopher Hurd, the movie was originally to feature the first on-screen pairing of Robert De Niro and Al Pacino playing Charlie and Paulie, respectively. In the end, Mickey Rourke and Eric Roberts played the roles. Yeah, that might be a downgrade. Just saying.
I had never seen this film until I watched it. I want to say at the end of last year because I knew that we were coming around on it. And this movie is a tough watch for me because both good acting performances. I'll get out there for Eric Roberts and Mickey Rourke, but Eric Roberts in this movie is such a sniveling, annoying, one of the most annoying characters I've ever seen in any movie ever, that when he gets his finger cut off for stuff that he did, I was cheering that. And I was waiting for him to get like a bullet between the eyes or something by the mob. I didn't get what I was looking for, but this is not a rewatchable movie for me for that reason. And I am happy to have only seen it once. Any thoughts on the film, guys?
Same. I saw it once. And I didn't buy the. It's a good movie. It's well played, and he's supposed to be that whiny and snivelly. That's obviously a director's. That's a choice made by.
And his hairdo in this film is bothersome. I just can't get around the curly outfit.
Oh man, like it's a lot. It has it should have had its own billing.
Yeah. Kyle, you're nodding your head that you haven't seen it, so that's
I have not seen it.
we will go ahead and move on to the next film that
it qualifies as 2 hours you're not going to get back. So
yes, definitely
choose wisely.
Yeah.
Maybe Kevin, before we get to this film, this is a film that needs a modern sequel with this. No, not probably our next film requires a modern sequel now with these two stars reuniting.
Let's not discuss that. Maybe so. The next film is called Rhinestone, made just over $21 million. And the poster says she's bet everything, and we mean everything, that she can turn a New York cabbie into an overnight sensation. She has other things in mind, but he's never had a trainer like this one. Rhinestone, starring Sylvester Stallone and Dolly Parton, co-starring Richard Farnsworth and Tim Thomerson. A country music star must turn an obnoxious New York cabbie into a singer in order to win a bet. Directed by Bob Clark. Kyle, give us some trivia on Rhinestone.
So Sylvester Stallone turned down the male lead in Romancing the Stone and the lead in Beverly Hills Cop before it was rewritten as a comedy to make this film. He really believed in it, apparently. And in an interview, Stallone once said that if there were any films he wished he hadn't done, this film was one of them. Sylvester Stallone sings in this movie. This was not the first movie where Stallone was heard singing, as he had sung the title song for Paradise Alley in 1978. According to her autobiography, My Life and Other Unfinished Business, Dolly Parton states she considers the soundtrack of this album, considers the soundtrack album for this movie as some of the best work she has ever done. This earned Sylvester Stallone his first ever Razzie Award nomination, which he's received many now over the years, and he would win it for Worst Actor too.
I had trouble finding this film, guys. I really did. I wanted to watch this film. I was curious about it. I'd never seen it before. I can't find it streaming anywhere. I can only find parts of it on YouTube. I actually went down and bought a VHS copy of it on eBay for less than $10 just so I can watch the damn thing. Dolly is absolutely adorable in this film. She's the best part of this film. And I'm sorry, Sylvester, you should not have been in this film. That's my take, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Never watching this film again. Lacey, I think you have different thoughts on this film.
Yeah, I think that part of his, I think that's part of the character for him. I think he really did, like, some of the like futzing and like I feel like that was part of like what she was trying to do, like, because you're taking a New York cab driver and turning him to a singer. That's just part of, I mean, this is the gender bent version of My Fair Lady, right?
What it should have been is, it should definitely had the comic thing, but they should have actually gotten someone who could sing and just done a flip version of A Star Is Born and done it with someone more talented that could sing and made it more believable.
Okay, but when you're trying to make it, I mean, let's face it, it was comedy, I mean, it's, so I ordered the DVD like when I first saw that it was on the list, and it still hasn't shown up yet. So I don't know. I don't know if it's coming from Asia or Australia. I don't know where it's coming from, but I still, it's on the way. So I haven't seen it probably since it was on HBO. So
okay,
whatever.
On the next episode, watch it and give me your feedback on it, because I want to see how you feel about it now.
We'll see how it holds up.
Yeah.
I will say that this was kind of in the middle of his little spot where he was doing like some comedy. He was trying to kind of break out of some of that action stuff. So it was like this, and Your Mom, Stop Or My Mom Will Shoot, and a couple of those other ones that were kind of fun.
Yeah, not a huge fan. I think his best comedy was in what is it? Tango and Cash. I'm gonna go Tango and Cash because he was funny.
Tango and Cash to me is still an action comedy. I'm thinking like straight comedy. I would say Oscar.
Which is
I have to rewatch that. I only watched that once, and I have not watched it again.
Don't do it to yourself.
Yeah. But let's get into the next film that I'm really excited about, guys, and that is Top Secret. Made over $21 million in its initial run. And of course, it has so many fun posters for this, guys. I love the posters here. And Kyle, just real quick, one of the most famous movie cows of all time. And I could probably between this and maybe the cow in Twister. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, we got cows. Cows.
We got more.
Of course, I'm waiting for that cows follow up in Twisters coming out later this summer.
Can't
It's
wait.
true. So this is from the makers of the original Airplane. Of course, we're talking about Jim Abrams and the Zucker brothers, David and Jerry Zucker. And this time, Zucker and Abrams are spoofing, most notably, Elvis fans and World War II spy films. Val Kilmer stars as Nick Rivers, a handsome American 50s-style rock and roll singer. While performing in East Germany, he falls in love with the beautiful heroine, Lucy Gutteridge, and becomes involved in the French resistance. Stars, of course, Val Kilmer, Omar Sharif, Jeremy Kemp, Lucy Gutteridge, Michael Gough, and Peter Cushing. Kyle, give us some trivia on Top Secret.
The songs that Val Kilmer sings, speaking of actors singing, in the film are actually performed by Val Kilmer himself and were featured on the film soundtrack released in 1984 under Kilmer's character's name, Nick Rivers. And when Nick Rivers is in jail, a headshot of Cher can be clearly seen on the wall of the cell several times. Val Kilmer was dating Cher at the time. The magnifying glass prosthetic that Peter Cushing wears in the bookshop scene involved the making of a cast of his face to fit it. The same cast was used 30 years later by ILM to build a CGI model of his face for Rogue One, a Star Wars story. This would also, unfortunately, be Peter Cushing's last American movie production. And finally, the scene in which Lucy Gutteridge looks down from the balcony onto the street to see hamsters and mice was, in fact, a miniature from Superman, the original film from 1978. The Zucker brothers and Jim Abrahams stated in the DVD commentary that they found it in an old Shepperton Studios and thought it would be a great idea to use it somewhere in the movie.
I just want to touch on the one thing about Val Kilmer singing. They released that as a soundtrack. Apparently, it's really, really hard to find and very expensive. I would love to have that soundtrack because it's the songs he sings in this are hilarious, including the opening, skeet surfing in the USA. One of my favorite comedies of all times, guys. I saw this multiple times in the theater. And Lacey, I think we're both holding up the same DVD, right? Yours is not a Blu-ray, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say again, this is one of those commentaries this is one of those DVDs that had commentary back in the day when they were first kind of starting to do commentaries and stuff. This is actually a really, really cool commentary. It's got both of the Zuckers on it. It's got Abrahams. It's got John Davidson and Hunt Lowry. Like, it's got a bunch of folks. But my favorite little nugget is that when they were writing the script, they were trying to decide who they could get to play Omar Sharif's character because it was such a kind of a specific thing. And somebody was like, like an Omar, it has to be somebody like Omar Sharif, like somebody who's got that power like Omar Sharif. And apparently like Zucker or Abraham, one of the Abrahams kept saying like, Omar Sharif. And finally somebody was like, have you thought about just asking Omar Sharif instead of like, I don't know. There's no, he's such, because
novelties, party tricks, souvenirs.
Look at his he's such a dramatic actor, and he's Oscar nominations, and they were like, oh, okay, and he was like, absolutely, that sounds so much fun, and he came and played with them for a couple of days.
So okay, I don't know if this is considered a hot take. Oh. I'm a big fan of the Airplane movies. I'm a big fan of course, Naked Gun. I think this movie has the most sight gags than any other live action film I've ever seen. Ooh. And I'm gonna die on that hill until I'm proven wrong, because I've seen Airplane lots of times. I've seen Airplane 2 lots of times. I've seen all the Naked Gun films. The way this movie, and I had trouble for the longest time trying to explain to people who haven't seen Top Secret of what it's about. And it's one of those things like, well, it's a parody off of surfer films, but takes place during World War II. And so for some people, they're like, nah, it doesn't sound funny. So, but when you watch this film, there are so many funny sight gags and seeing it. I actually, when I was watching this, I'm like, I'm going to keep track of the sight gags in this. I stopped counting at 10 because they just boom, 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 boom. Because you really have to pay attention to a lot of stuff. Yeah, Lacey, real quick.
I would push this against Men in Tights. I would put that.
Okay. I've watched Men in Tights recently, and I'm still saying Top Secret.
It's one of those things that, like, no matter what they say, the background is just going on. There's so much stuff in the background. Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with Top Secret. There's a lot of stuff. I don't want to spend debating that. I trust that definitely a runner up. But this movie has so many freaking side gags. I was laughing out loud again on a lot of these things. And it had been a while since I've watched it. And I used to watch this all the time. I've always had a copy of this film. And I just want to mention some of my favorite top sight gags in this one. I love the porcelain Nazi that just, falls over and he breaks. The cow is great in every scene. I love the trivia about the cow. I love that when they're in the park, there's that gigantic bird that poops, but you have humans flying down on top of it. It's the weirdest thing. The ballet with the guys with the enormous crotches.
They're stepping on. They're using them as stepping stones. Yeah,
and my two other favorites are, I love when she's like trying to describe what's going on. And he's like, yeah, it's like a plot of a very bad movie, and they both closely turn and look at the camera. But my favorite one of all time, because I have a personal attachment to this, is when in the beginning and you're seeing the Nazis and the guy pulls out a stamps the thing says, and the stamp says, "Find him and kill him." There was a guy at a video store in my hometown that had that, and every now and then he would stamp that on the receipts, find him and kill him.
Nice.
I could go on and on about this film, but I want to give you guys a chance. Kyle, let's start with you.
You guys have said a lot about it, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. This is a cult film. This is a great film. And come on, there is no better 80s double feature to go with this movie. You go to your Blockbuster video, you rent Top Secret, and you rent Gotcha.
I did not think that at all, Kyle. I would have gone with Gotcha in the other film that is about that type of thing, but that's a good one. I like that one. Lacey, your thoughts on Top Secret?
It's fantastic. It's fun. It's hilarious. It's ridiculous. The commentary tells a lot of good stuff, and it's always fun to go back and watch Val Kilmer do anything for 2 hours.
His first film, and he kills it, and he is freaking funny. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. The next film that we're going to talk about is Bachelor Party. Here, I got my DVD right here. Made just over $38 million in its original run. Shocking, shameless, sinful, wicked, and the party hasn't even started. Bachelor Party, a man's tradition every woman should know about. A soon-to-be married man's friend throws him the ultimate bachelor party. Directed by Neil Israel, stars Tom Hanks, Tawny Kitaen, Adrian Zmed, and American Ninja Man himself, Mr. Michael Dudikoff. Kyle, please give us some trivia on Bachelor Party.
Talk about casting that would completely change this movie. Kelly McGillis and Paul Reiser were considered for the lead roles early in production, but were replaced due to lack of chemistry between them. Kelly McGillis had secured the female lead, but was fired early in the shoot because she wasn't considered to be pretty or sexy enough. B-movie legend in December 1982 Penthouse Pen of the Month, Monique Gabrielle, I need a minute. Full nude scene as Tracy, in which she tries to seduce Rick, propelled her into the world's consciousness, but it wouldn't be her only prominent role. For the rest of her career,
it would be her only prominent.
Right. Yeah. She went on to play parts mostly requiring nudity in a series of low-budget horror, action, and comedy films, most going straight to video. She then ended up starring in and producing her own adult videos. According to the DVD, this film was inspired by the actual Bachelor Party thrown for producer Bob Israel. I need to know more about that. Due to scheduling conflicts with Revenge of the Nerds, Ted McGinley turned down the role of Rico.
It's Rico, actually. It's
Rico. Yeah.
Rico is the one that steals the old boyfriend jerk's Porsche and then brings it back looking even better, much to the demise of himself. I think Ted McGinley could have killed this. I thought it'd be funny. Kyle, your thoughts on Bachelor Party?
This is one of in modern era, this movie does not even get close to being made. This is a time capsule movie, but Tom Hanks is so great in it. Tawny Kitaen is great. Adrian Zmed, who at this point, the only thing I actually was more familiar with him from Grease 2 than this at the time. But I mean, this is classic early 80s comedy, no holds barred. Most people, this is a totally different Tom Hanks than most people will say Tom Hanks from now. Most people, around this time, he's riding the wave of Boost and Buddies, and he gets this film, and there's just a certain magic to this film, and I think it's going to be always one of those things. It's a time capsule cult film.
Lacey, have you seen Bachelor Party?
Have seen Bachelor Party. I feel like this is kind of one of those ones that had to be made back in the day in order for things like The Hangover to get made or Very Bad Things.
Yeah.
I think that if it was made today, they would have to. I mean, I feel like what's the one Rough Night with it was the female version with
with Scarlett Johansson and a bunch of those
Kate McKinnon. So there's been a lot of these films. I think this is kind of the first outing. Hilarious. The guy with the drugs was my favorite. He kept finding things like everything. It was just like, oh god, that guy. Wow, that's impressive. But yeah, so I've seen it. I have the Blu-ray somewhere or DVD somewhere, and I just couldn't find it. So
I rocked out the DVD I have here, and I've never gotten the Blu-ray. I've always held on to the DVD. It's
I think mine's a DVD. I think the Blu-ray is like $80 or something.
When it comes to 80s sex comedies, I think it's probably my favorite, or at least up there. And it's interesting too, because I like that there's this, yes, it's got your nudity and it's fun stuff like it, but I like that you actually have a cute couple that actually has chemistry in it and it works. I love Tawny Katane. She doesn't have to show any nudity in this. That's not where you get that from. And I love her and Tom together in this. I think it's fun, and how all the debauchery usually goes with everyone else. But my favorite scene in this movie is the Nick the Dick scene. And what's funny about that scene is that there's two things I just noticed it for the first time really watching it, is that the mom who grabs the hot dog that has, who's part in it. And she is shocked by what's happening when she realizes it. She keeps pulling on it, and she's pulling in shock. I laugh every single time. But the line that Tom gives,
hard.
Hold on. Tom, remember when Nick first shows himself? You don't see it, but to the guys of why he's called Nick the Dick, and they're all like, "Oh, that's amazing! Yes, that's great." And they're all like, complimenting on his his member. The line that I didn't realize for a long time, because he gets kind of lost in it, but I noticed it in the it was at the subtitles, that Tom Hanks says, the most impressive thing I've seen up until now was the opening of the World Trade Center. I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay, so anyway, a little time capsule there. Great film, funny. Kyle?
I'm just going to say, too, this film changed the complexion of egg beaters nationwide.
Yes, it did. All right. On that, the next film we have is the Cannonball Run II. The popcorn's in the lobby. The nuts are on the screen. Starring Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Jamie Farr, Mary Lou Henner, Telly Savalas, and Shirley MacLaine. The original characters of Cannonball Run from '81 race across the country once more in various cars and trucks, of course, directed by Hal Needham. And I already mentioned who's on there as well. Kyle, give us some quick trivia here for this. This is interesting.
Yeah, we get to hear a second, but first a moment. Words, not deeds. Hal Needham.
There you go, right there. There he is.
Yep.
Right there. That's not Hal Needham. That, of course, is our ace hunter from, of course, Megaforce. Hal Needham directed Megaforce.
The second of the Cannonball Run series. A little trivia here. We got Frank Sinatra's cameo was his final acting role in a theatrical movie. He would guest star on an episode of Magnum P.I. in 1987, as well as Who's the Boss in 1989, and Daddy Dearest in 1993, which were his final acting roles. So, according to Hal Needham, the day Frank Sinatra showed up on set on location to shoot his scene in the Dodge Daytona Turbo, talking to Blake, Dean Martin, and Federum, Sammy Davis Jr., almost every cast member, even those who did not have a call to be on the set that day, came on set to see Sinatra, Davis, Martin, and honorary Rat Pack member Shirley MacLaine reunite and reminisce. This would be the final appearance in a movie with the original members of the Rat Pack. Final of the 1970s to 1980s action car stunt comedies for Burt Reynolds. These films included Smokey and the Bandit and the Cannonball Run films, as well as Stoker Ace and Hooper.
So, guys, I had not seen Cannonball Run 2. I don't remember when I saw it. I know I saw it. I just didn't remember it. Big fan, of course, of the original. And I found this comedy double feature of the Gumball Rally and Cannonball Run II. I was trying to find. There was a double feature of Cannonball Run and Cannonball Run 2, but it was more money than I wanted to spend, so I just got Cannonball Run and rewatched it. Cannonball Run 2, I'm just going to say, starts out okay, and then just kind of goes off the rails. It just gets really silly. It's less about the race itself. And I thought of you while I was rewatching this, Lacee, because something that annoyed you from the last time we were talking was the topic of stolen valor, and I'll let you comment on that. But the thing that was important about this film, though, is basically the last time we see the Rat Pack together, or at least most of it. And that's kind of a big deal when you think of it on that side. But that alone couldn't save the film for me. I'm just going to stick with the original. Lacee, your thoughts on Cannonball Run 2?
It was another one of those ones where the first one was so classic with, him and, all that. And then you get to the second one and it's good. And then it kind of sort of a little bit kind of
goes off the rails. Yeah.
It's just, and there's some weird stuff. I watched them back to back the other day, and now I can't remember which one Roger Moore is in. I think it's the second one, right?
First one.
Is it the first?
Yeah,
one?
there's some trivia that he did not come back in the second one. He regretted it because he found out who else was going to be in it. So.
Right. But I still think out of both films, I still think the Roger Moore the through line is the funniest one, where the woman is like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I met."
And you had Jackie Chan, and with driving with Richard Kiel, who played Jaws, and in those films with Roger Moore, and you had to have your obligatory Jackie Chan fight scene and all that kind of stuff. My favorite part actually is in the beginning when you have Barbara Bach and the other blonde girl and the cool Lamborghini, and then they're out running, and then they get the red taken off, and now it's a white Lamborghini. Starts off well, but to me, and then you had the weird monkey pretending to drive the weird limousine. You did have Don Knotts and Tim Conway come in for a little bit,
Nice.
But Kyle, your thoughts on Cannonball Run 2?
Obviously, it's going to have a place in history because of the Rat Pack aspect of it, but they just went a little too over the top with Cannonball Run 2. If they would have stuck a little bit more to the formula of the first one, I think it goes over a little better. I just think it's one of those sequels where, did we really need a sequel? But they were capitalizing on the idea and the success of the first one and go from there. Real quick, Kevin, we've had this conversation about, like the Fast and Furious doing like a Cannonball Run type thing, kind of getting it back to its roots. But if you were going to do like a true Cannonball Run where it's a little bit more of a comedy, who are you putting in that lead role? Because
the first person I thought of would be Zac Efron, because he's funny. I'd also put in what's his name from Magic Mike films. He's funny.
Oh, Channing Tatum would be great.
Channing Tatum, yeah. I would do so. I would love to see, but I want to see more of the racing and the cars in addition to the comedy. That's why I would say, that's why I wanted the Fast and Furious films to kind of bring it back down to the original film, is have a serious reason why you're racing across country. Like, have a serious version of Cannonball Run where they have to do things and not go out to space anymore, that type of thing. But anyway,
so maybe we do a co-directing tandem: Justin Lin for the driving and action, and Seth Rogen for the comedy side.
There you go. Perfect. I'm sold. Bring me that Cannonball Run. I'm in. Yeah. So yeah.
Have you seen Rat Race?
I have, but it's been a long time.
Okay.
I do remember enjoying it, but I have not seen Gumball Rally. Should I watch Gumball Rally?
Yeah, it's cute. It's fun. Okay. It is. I'm just gonna go with of its time.
Okay.
So,
all right, guys. The last film we're going to be talking about in June of 1984 is Conan the Destroyer. And I have a picture, of course, of the Destroyer poster here. And then I have a picture of the other Schwarzenegger films that he did in the 80s. I'm going to bring that up in a second. But I just want to mention that I got the Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer Blu-rays at my favorite place in LA, Amoeba Records in Movic. Nice. And you got a 2-movie collection there. I should have gotten that one, but I got these both for $6 a piece, so I bought them. I like that little 2-movie collection. That's good there.
This is just called Complete Quest. Conan the Complete Quest. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, maybe I should upgrade to that one. So Conan leads a ragtag group of adventurers on a quest for a princess. Richard Fleischer is the director, starring, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Grace Jones, Olivia d'Abo, Wilt Chamberlain, and Mako. Kyle, give us some trivia on Conan the Destroyer, the sequel to The Barbarian.
Quick note, one of the few Schwarzenegger films that has somebody bigger than Arnold in it and somebody with more testosterone than Arnold in it.
Do you want to say who that is, Kyle?
Well, of course, bigger is Wilt Chamberlain. Testosterone is Grace Jones.
Well played. Well played.
Some trivia on this film. Speaking of Wilt Chamberlain, the production had a hard time finding a horse for Wilt Chamberlain to ride. He was so tall that his feet touched the ground. They ultimately found one in Spain that was big enough and imported it to Mexico. Wilt Chamberlain and Grace Jones didn't get along on set. Maybe that's a testosterone issue. Chamberlain had to keep asking Jones to turn down her boombox. 6 people controlled the Dagoth monster, working its arms, mouth, eyes, and body. And some scenes filmed in the same location at the same time as scenes from Dune 1984. That explains a lot of things, actually.
I got a hot take on this, guys. Do you want to guess what it is?
It's better than the first one?
Yes! That is my hot take, and people are going to crucify me for that, but I don't care. I watched them back to back on Blu-ray each year. Don't get me wrong, I love the original Conan. I love the way he does that kind of camouflage, thing that he does with the big blonde lady. I can't remember her name, but I like this movie better because I like the team better. I also like the fact that there was more funny scenes in it. I like the characters in the team a lot better. I love the quest better. I just enjoyed it a lot more, and my hot take is I enjoy the sequel better than the original. There, I'm going to leave it at that. Lacey, your thoughts on Conan the Destroyer? Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong. I think that it is definitely the more humorous of the two. I think there's kind of better, kind of a team dynamic feel to this one. I will say that if I was choosing between, I would have to go with the Beastmaster.
Okay. Gotcha. I like that.
But, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a different. I mean, I know it's a different concept. You've got the fight, whatever, but it's the same story. Is this Conan has a sword and Beastmaster has a bunch of animals. So yeah. Also, are we talking about the remake at all? Are we talking about the updated
No.
remake of the Jason
No.
Momoa?
No time. Kyle.
So, of the Conan, the original Conan film is the more true and better Conan film as far as just sticking to the Conan material. But you were right about the aspect of because of the personalities of the actors you have in Conan the Destroyer. I think it's a much more relatable film for the moviegoer. And come on, I mean, you've got Schwarzenegger, you've got Wilt Chamberlain, you've got Grace Jones and Mako, some of the most out there personalities in Hollywood.
I even love the villain in this too, Kyle. Yeah.
And of course, Olivia d'Abo is just gorgeous no matter what she's in. And so I think this, like I said, I think this film is definitely the more relatable of the Conan films. But if you're looking for something more that's true Conan, it's probably the original film. I think too, if you want really me to be honest with you, I prefer Schwarzenegger. I love the first Conan, but if you take the Destroyer, I actually prefer him in Red Sonja over Conan the Destroyer.
Well, let's talk about this real quick. I got a picture up here, and this movie, watching these two movies back to back and seeing this meme that I shared up here of Schwarzenegger's 80s films here. And he did 10 films in the 80s. He did Conan 1 and 2. He did Red Sonja, Commando, Terminator, Predator, Twins, Red Heat, The Running Man, and Raw Deal, all in the 80s. And it made me miss like Arnold action movies big time because he blew up in the 80s. And there was a debate going on social media, like who had the better 80s action career? Was it was it Arnold Schwarzenegger or was it Sylvester Stallone? And after watching these two double features of the Conan films, I went and watched The Running Man. I went and watched Red Heat back to back. I saw Terminator earlier this year on the big screen with my wife when we watched do to a live orchestra. So real quick, guys, answer, who had the better 80s action career? Was it Sylvester Stallone, Conan? Just give me who it was, and which is your favorite of his 80s action film? Lacey.
Between Stallone and Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, who had the better 80s action career?
Ooh, I gotta go Arnold. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then which one is your Commando's your favorite guy. By
That's
the
my
way, I
Valentine's
just watched that too,
Yeah.
the extended director's edition, because you said it was your favorite on my post. So I went and watched that as well. Kyle,
Nice.
Sylvester Stallone, or was it Arnold Schwarzenegger? Who had the best 80s action in the 80s?
I think it's Schwarzenegger. Stallone was so varied, and he was trying too many other different things in the
Rhinestone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I have to prerequisite this because I love Predator. But Predator is also because it's such an ensemble piece. If you're talking just Schwarzenegger on his own, it's Commando.
Yeah, it's a good one. I'm gonna go with I've gone back and forth on this, but I'm gonna go with Terminator, having recently watched it as well. But the movie that does not get love that people should see more of is Raw Deal. It is a great action movie. He's acting steps up a notch, and also it's a great monster movie as well. Just gotta throw that out there. Any final thoughts on Conan the Destroyer, Kyle?
It's a great sword and sorcery film. Schwarzenegger had a great run with the 2 Conan films and Red Sonja. You could easily make an all-day triple feature out of those 3 films.
Yeah, I'm going to continue my run, by the way. I think I'm probably going to watch Raw Deal next because I haven't watched it this year. Lacey, any final thoughts on Conan the Destroyer?
You know what? I think I said it. I mean, I dig it. It was good. I think it does have like a better comedic task. I think it has a better team dynamic, and yeah, watch it.
So normally we have cutting room floor, but I couldn't cut anything out of this June. There was just too many interesting movies and blockbusters, and June definitely had top grossing movies of 1984. We had 4 films in the top 100, with Ghostbusters being at the top. At number 4, we had Gremlins. At number 5, we had The Karate Kid, and at number 9, we had Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock. So yeah. All right, guys, let's go ahead and wrap things up. Lacey, want to get your final thoughts on this June of 1984 time warp of the summer blockbusters starting to make their run?
I think June was pretty good. I feel like June was a really solid. I think we're about to. Well, now we're going to hit July, which is going to give us, I think, going to give June a run for its money as far as amount of films.
I will tease that in a second.
But I think that as far as the blockbusters, we're talking June. Yeah. I think June is definitely the big month for this year.
Kyle, your final thoughts on June 1984?
I think blockbuster wise, it's the biggest month of this year. It's interesting when you talk about the numbers of it, how much of a drop off there is after the top 4, because Gremlins was number 4 at $153 million. The drop down to number 5, which is The Karate Kid, is $90 million. It's almost $63 million difference between 5 and the top 4. That tells you how strong the top 4 films of this year were. I mean, and even at 90 million, that's a huge number for that time. But this to me is the most packed month of just superstar movies, superstar casts, even with the few oddball things that are in there. This movie is just jam-packed with a lot of movie history for a lot of people that are just timeless. There are a lot of time capsule movies in this month.
Well, as I said, of course, this is June 1984, and this is the Fandom Podcast Network. Time Warp, thank you guys for listening and watching, but we're going to tease what's coming up next in July, and some movies that are going to be highlighted, of course, are The Last Starfighter, Revenge of the Nerds, Purple Rain, The Muppets Take Manhattan, The Never-Ending Story, Electric Dreams, Best Defense, The Bostonians, Blast Fighter, and Cheech and Chong's The Corsican Brothers. So we got an interesting and eclectic group, and of course, we're going to be covering some of the TV and music as well. This is Time Warp, guys. My name is Kevin. You can find me on the Fandom Podcast Network, of course, and also on all social media at Spartan_Phoenix. Of course, that includes Threads, Instagram, X, Letterbox, and there's something else as well.
Discord,
yes. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Instagram and on Twitter. Kyle, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW. You can also find me on Discord at AKyleW. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom. You can find me on Facebook under Kyle Wagner, and of course all over the Fandom Podcast Network pages. And if you're really interested, check out me out on Letterboxd at KSport16.
Nice. And Lacey, where can we find you?
I'm on all of the places at Lacey Pants.
Nice.
All of them. Pretty much.
Perfect. And what's really cool is that, we can find you on Facebook, but I'm more excited about me actually seeing you in person.
Yay!
I'm excited. I'm going to Atlanta area to visit my daughter and some of the friends and family. But more importantly, Kyle is coming up to say hi. And I get to see you, Lacey. We're going to hang out and maybe have some shenanigans. We'll see what happens. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Shenanigans.
I've been able to meet both of you individually, but and also like I met both of you during the pandemic, so
yeah.
This is the first time we get to like go out and do all the fun.
Okay, Kevin, I don't know if she's ready for the experience.
Oh, yeah, we'll see. Well, I want to thank Kyle. I want to thank Lacey, as always, for being my awesome co-host here for Time Warp. We hope you guys enjoyed this time travel back into 1984. Until next time, guess what, guys? We will see you back in time.